Good evening, and welcome to the April 11th meeting of the Livermore City Council. I now call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show that all the members of the council are present and accounted for, with the exception of Councilman Bob Warner, who is excused tonight. If you'll please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have no proclamations or presentations tonight. Moving on to the Citizens Forum, these are items that are not on the agenda. The City Council can neither deliberate nor take action on anything brought up during the Citizens Forum, and we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. With that, I've got about half a dozen cards here. First is Betty Murillo, Don Meeker, and Jeff Caskey. Betty Murillo. Betty.
Hey. I'm going to show everybody this picture, though, since I'm a native daughter. This is a picture that my sister and we were raised over on Portola Avenue, and that was the old Highway 50, and my dad owned Murillo Blacksmith and Welding Shop. And this is a picture of us when we were little kids, 5 and 6 years old. I had to go to school to Junction Avenue. I went there from kindergarten to 8th grade, and I'm one of the only ones that has a pin that says I graduated from Junction Avenue. I just thought you'd like to hear that. Of course. But here's my real speech. Okay, Mayor Marchand and the City Council. I am Betty Murillo, native daughter at 1574 Heather Lane, Springtown. I would like to thank and applaud the council for placing our city-owned 85 acres on the November ballot to prevent housing development on said acres. It was much appreciated, and I appreciate it. Tonight I will be addressing several issues. We are hoping that you will allow Mark Colt's proposal to be extended. We are working together to bring about a proposal that will satisfy...
This is on the agenda.
Huh?
The Citizens Forum is for only things that are not on the agenda.
Oh, not on the agenda?
Right. So you're
Can we cancel me?
You're going to answer. You're going to be speaking on 6.02.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is. So
I filled out the card wrong. What can I say?
Citizens Forum is only for items that are not on the agenda. So you're on the agenda. So I'll put you down for 6.02.
Thanks.
You're on the list.
The picture was good.
There you go.
The picture was not on the agenda.
There you go. Picture was not. Very good. Okay, let's go for Don Meeker, Jeff Caskey, and David McGuigan.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Tonight I'm going to speak about Corporal Thomas Casey. The first mention of Corporal Casey is on August 6, 1883, the council minutes. The sheriff, Al Hilton, he gets his salary, paying bills, salary, meals to prisoners, etc., including a bill for the extra police for the 4th of July and whitewashing the town jail by Thomas Casey, $118.25. That week in the Herald, the Casey case. The town's last commercial dealing with Casey, our constitutional nuisance, which we are at a loss what to do with, is summed up as follows. Board in town jail, 20 days, $15. Justice fees, $3. Paid Casey for whitewashing the fence while imprisoned for violation of town ordinance, $12. Total of $30. Before Casey had been out a week, he got into a row on the street, assaulted a town trustee, chased a well-known dry goods man into a store with a dummy, and walked victorious from the field. His evident intent was to get back into his old quarters with free board and good pay. 3 years later, May 26, 1886, a notice in the Herald. To whom it may concern, notice is hereby given that any person who shall hereafter sell, give, or furnish to Thomas Casey, otherwise known as Corporal Casey, any intoxicating liquors, and any person who shall cause to be sold, given, or furnished to said Casey, any intoxicating liquors, will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. That's by E.D. Murphy, town marshal. That week, in the town minutes, it says some discussion was had relative to that poor, unfortunate, and perennial nuisance, Corporal Casey. The marshal reported that Casey had left town and no action was taken. You just got to put a notice in the paper saying people will be arrested and he can't get any booze, so he's going to leave.
And that's the way it was. Jeff Caskey, David McGuigan, Michael Tree.
Mayor and Council, Jeff Caskey, 585 South K Street. At the March 28th council meeting, Gene King and I addressed the council regarding the ongoing process of choosing a developer and development plan for the downtown core. It was not our intention to question anyone's personal integrity or ethics, and we believe that every member of the council, as well as the city staff, wants the best for our city. If our communications caused personal offense, we apologize for our miscommunication. At that meeting, Councilmember Warner and staff made clear that the council is still open to any options for scale and location of the hotel and its conference center, and Councilmember Gary reinforced the intention to be transparent and even-handed. Subsequently, we had the opportunity to speak with the mayor, and he affirmed those positions. We believe and appreciate these clarifications of the intentions of council. We hope that the developer finalists will be looking at all the options, and we look forward to being part of the citizen input process as it moves forward in public hearings and workshops to find the best project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caskey. And I think that the council has agreed that we do support a transparent and open process, and we encourage public input every step of the way. So thank you very much. Dave McGuigan, Michael Tree, and Linda Seaver.
Dave McGuigan, Ontario Drive. There's been a number of discussions recently on the downtown hotel and what may or may not come of that. We had a meeting back in February where proposals were given, and I kind of left that meeting with the impression that there was a hotel project and a retail residential project. There's some comments last week, or the last meeting, where it wasn't quite clear that that's really what was going on, but since that seems to be what was bid and what was going out, I think we're going to get a retail residential project and a hotel project. And given what I've seen so far, I kind of took my little time machine, went to the future, and we're going to get a retail residential project that it's going to be reasonable, and we're going to get a hotel project that nobody's going to sign up against, because that's just the way it's going to be, because we constrained the hotel property to be entirely too small. So my question is that when this comes forward and we get these two projects and we get the hotel project that nobody's going to want because you can't make a commercially viable hotel on that site, and we get the retail project and you go forward, we left this side over here. What about the Growth Brothers property? I believe that's set for apartments, but maybe the hotel goes there. I'll just kind of leave it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGuigan. Mr. Kiefer, just a quick clarification, if you would, please. The developers that brought forth proposals for the downtown, specifically for the hotel, retail, residential, did the city dictate to them which site was going to be for a hotel? Could you just expand on that?
Yeah, no, they didn't. And in fact, when the RFPs went out, there was an effort to make sure that everybody that was responding to the RFP looked at uses on both sides of the street. So if somebody was interested in building a hotel on the west side of the street, by all means, they were encouraged to explore that opportunity.
Okay, but at this point, no one has proposed that. At least the final applicants. The ad hoc committee has,
Correct.
but not the none of the other applicants. Okay, great. Thank you very much for the clarification. Michael Tree and Linda Seaver.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and staff. My name is Michael Tree. I'm the Executive Director with the Livermore-Amador Valley Transit Authority, and we're the operators of the Wheels bus system in Livermore and also Pleasanton and Dublin. This evening, I wanted to bring to the Council and also to the public an update on the Wheels Forward planning efforts. And simply put, Wheels Forward is looking into the future. It's looking to make improvements to the Wheels bus system. And as you are aware, over the last 12 months, we've been working with the public to that end. We've involved a stakeholder group, a technical advisory group. We've had a community survey and also a ridership survey. And then finally, we've had multiple rounds of public workshops to gain public input and to give input specifically on several scenarios of improvements for the Wheels bus system. The goal was to increase the ridership on the Wheels bus system, and we set out to do that by making it easier to use. Some of the criteria or the categories that we were focusing on to improve the system included reducing duplication, reducing meandering routes and inconvenient loops that add time onto our customers' travels, and also to create a more frequent bus system, especially to key destinations such as Las Positas College and to the many residents who travel every day to the BART stations. And so we have finalized proposed improvements for the LAFTA board to consider and for the public to weigh in on. And there's two ways to do that, two easy ways, if you can remember. Wheelsforward.com, that's the website that contains information on not only the current bus system, but the proposed changes. And it also has an easy-to-use comment box where you can provide your inputs on what you're seeing. And we're taking comments through April 22nd on the wheelsforward.com website. And then the second way that you can review the proposed changes and offer public comment is at the public hearing, which the LAFTA board will hold on May 2nd at 6 p.m. That's a Monday evening, and that will be at the Bankhead Theater at 2400 First Street. And so there's some exciting changes that have been proposed. If you're a Wheels customer or if you're a resident in Livermore, certainly the Livermore changes would be the ones that you'd most likely be interested in. And I have just a few of them. I'll run through them quickly. Route 15, which serves the Springtown area, has increased frequency, meaning the bus comes more often. The Rapid's been realigned. It has 15-minute all-day bus frequency, and it will serve Las Positas College. And then two other ones that I'll mention, and then I'll be quiet. Route 10 is a very popular route. It takes Livermore residents to Pleasanton and through Hacienda Business Park and then into the BART station. It gets upgraded to 15-minute all-day frequency. And then finally, what's really exciting is a new route called the 580X, and it will go from downtown Livermore directly to the express lanes on the 580 and right into the BART station. So 15 minutes of travel and no parking hassles on the other end, all for less than the cost of parking on the Wheels bus. So again, two ways of commenting, and I look forward to hearing those comments.
Great, thank you. What was the website again?
So it is www.wheelsforward.com.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you very much. Linda Seaver.
Mayor Marchand, City Council members, and members of the City staff, good evening. I'm Linda Seaver. I'm the Director of the Public Affairs Office at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. As the Director of Public Affairs, I'm the official spokesman for the laboratory. I'm here to clarify that if you don't hear it from me, it's not the lab's official position. Last year, the laboratory was invited to come before this council and speak on the development of the downtown area. At that time, I read a statement from my director, Bill Goldstein, voicing support for development of a hotel and/or conference center that would complement other facilities in the Tri-Valley area. Since that time, there have been additional letters of support, which I provided for the record, but did not deem it necessary to present them personally. What has followed has been confusion, speculation, and interpretation as to where the lab stands on this matter. So I'm here to set the record straight. The question before the lab is whether it would support the development of a downtown center that includes a hotel and conference center. The answer is yes. Is the laboratory asking the city to develop such a center? No. A recent report speculating how many hotel nights could be derived annually from lab visitors and conferences is an interpretation and does not represent the views of the laboratory. It is not the lab's contention that it will have tens of thousands of hotel nights per year that could be booked in Livermore. The laboratory is pleased with the city's efforts in exploring development of the downtown area and charting a course of action. At no time has the mayor, the city council member, or other city leaders ever conveyed to me, the public affairs office, or laboratory leadership that it is in the city's best interest for the lab to remain silent on this issue. This was recently reported before this council and in the press, and is simply not true. As the largest employer in Livermore, having employees who be interested in development of the downtown center is to be expected. However, it must be noted that any information these employees present, they do so as residents of Livermore or residents of the region, and not as spokespersons conveying the official position of the laboratory. Thank you for your time.
Just a quick question, Ms. Seaver, just a quick question. So just to clarify, at any time did any representative from the city try to suppress Mr. Goldstein's letter?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, that's it for the Citizens Forum. Moving on to the consent calendar. Does anybody wish to comment or pull any item for consideration?
I'll just be recusing myself from 4.01 since I wasn't here for the meeting. Watched it on TV, but I don't think that counts.
Okay, one thing on 4.03 regarding the Livermore Pleasant Fire Station number 9. If you have not driven by at night and seen the artwork on that building, it is really, really cool. It's the silhouettes of the firefighters, and it looks like they're fighting a fire. So if somebody drive by it in the daytime, it's a black silhouette. At night, it looks really cool. And from you can speak to having been there. That's what it looks like.
As many in the audience would know, I'm biased. Having said I'm biased, it's the best use of public art money this ex-firefighter's ever seen. It really is an attractive flame-cut flat panel sculpture backlit at night that talks to the history of fire services in Livermore, including our friend, the 100-plus-year-old light bulb at Fire Station 6 on East Avenue. So like in the mural downtown on the old fire station, Police City Hall building, and others, it's nice that we, with Mr. Meeker still here to hear me say this, represent and reflect and think positively about our history as we go forward into the future. It's really cool.
Okay, so with that, do I have a motion for the consent calendar?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Gary.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Turner. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think you have one abstention. Okay, so in the stack of 6.02, we found a card for Stacy Swanson or Michael Asahina. Did you wish to speak in the Citizens Forum, or did you wish to speak in Citizens Forum? Okay, my apologies. Michael Asahina.
Hi, Mayor and City Council and staff. Good evening. I have an announcement for. I'm going to read it to you. On Wednesday, April 20th, 7 p.m. North Livermore Community Alliance will be hosting Sibylla Kraus from Sustainable Agriculture Education, which is SAGE. SAGE specializes in developing urban edge agricultural parks from concept to on-the-ground realization, and in creating projects that connect urban edge agricultural areas with food initiatives in nearby cities. Ms. Kraus will be giving a presentation at the Livermore Civic Center Library. Community Room B. The meeting will only be 1 hour. Please join us and see one of the many possible opportunities for the use of our open space. Thank you.
Oh, very good. What was that website again, please?
sagecenter.org.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Sorry you got skipped there. You got put into a different stack. So thank you. Okay, we have no public hearings, so moving on to matters for consideration. We have a special landowner election for Community Facilities District 2016-1. That's the SAGE project. So we're going to, I'm going to ask for that we adopt a resolution calling for the special landowner election and direct the city clerk to conduct the landowner election. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Spadowski, seconded by Councilmember Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So now we hold the election. You have the ballots in hand.
Okay, this evening we have one ballot with 57 votes, all in favor of the establishment of the CFD.
Okay, so 57-0, all in favor.
Correct.
Okay, so now we need to adopt a resolution declaring the results of the special landowner election. The election is successful, and so in such that we would direct the recording of the special tax lien notice. Do I have a motion?
Move the resolution.
Moved by Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilmember Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. So great. We now consider yourselves directed to record the notice of the special tax lien. On to the main event. This is 6.02.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's one more item on there. There's the introduction of an ordinance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next page. Sorry about that. So, introducing an ordinance levying the special tax within the Community Facilities District, CFD. Do I have a motion to introduce the ordinance?
So moved.
Moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilmember Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. It's on the flip page there. Okay, now on to 6.02, the update regarding the Springtown Homeowners Association proposal for the private operation of the Springtown Golf Course. We have Mr. Greenwood and Mr. Schaefer who will be presenting the staff report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm Darren Greenwood, your Public Works Director. Item 6.02 is an update on the Springtown Golf Course and a review of a proposal for private operation of the course. As a brief background, the city has owned and operated the Springtown Golf Course since 1971. The course has struggled financially for many years despite a series of different operators with different levels of expertise and experience. By 2008-2009, the course had accumulated over $700,000 in debts to the city's general fund, with no remaining capital to do any improvements or operations of the course. In 2008, Council initiated a public engagement process for Springtown Golf Course that resulted in several possible options for continuing to operate the course without a subsidy from the general fund. And these included a long-term lease, an assessment district, or other revenue enhancements. The Council accepted the results of the engagement process and directed staff to issue a lease. In 2009, staff leased the course, or staff developed a lease with Sycamore Landscaping, and Sycamore operated the course successfully for a number of years before eventually needing a subsidy from the general fund. In July 2015, staff began discussions with the community regarding the financial condition of the course and the operator. Unfortunately, before those discussions were completed, in September we were informed by Sycamore that they would cease operations and close and go out of business on October 15th, which they did. At that point, staff implemented a temporary closure of the course, circulated an RFP to find a new lease operator, if any, and we did not find any. We also did a survey on assessment districts to see if the public would support an assessment district at a high enough level to support the course. And we updated a study from 2008 by the National Golf Foundation looking at viable options to keep the course open. In short, staff could not identify an option to operate the course without an ongoing subsidy from the general fund. On December 7, 2015, staff provided an update to the City Council and recommended permanent closure of the course. The December 2015 meeting also included a preliminary proposal from Mr. Mark Colt on behalf of the Springtown HOA to privately operate the course. At the conclusion of the December 15th council meeting, council directed staff to do several things: prepare a ballot initiative to preserve the course's open space and bring that back in May, proceed with development of a master planning process to reuse the golf course property as open space in conjunction with LARPD and Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. maintain the course in a temporary closure mode for 6 months in the event that a viable option to return the course to operation was identified, and to continue to work with the submitted HOA proposal to refine its unknowns and bring back an update in March of 2016 and a final report in May. Staff met with Mr. Colt in December of 2015, and we sent numerous emails notifying Mr. Colt of the deadline to submit information for a March update. Unfortunately, Mr. Colt failed to submit anything in that time, and staff was forced to reschedule the March update to April. When the proposal was submitted, it consisted of basically a PowerPoint presentation with no additional supporting information. Staff, nonetheless, despite the lack of a complete packet, tried to review the proposal under the same kind of standards that we would review any development proposal. So the same kinds of criteria were reviewed with regard to possible impacts of the project and things like that. Mr. Colt will come up with the completion of staff's remark to give an updated presentation. So I won't go through in detail the presentation, but I will go through just some of the concerns that staff found that are identified in the staff report. Some of the most serious concerns were over development impacts such as traffic. Based on a preliminary estimate, the proposal for 100,000 square feet of Class A office space would add about 1,100 daily trips in an area that already is impacted by traffic. So that's an area that would need significant efforts to make this project viable. In addition to that, there are site constraints that staff feels make it very difficult to accommodate this level of development. The project would need at least 330 additional parking spaces based on the use, and it seems difficult to accommodate that on the site, which may necessitate the use of a parking garage, which in Springtown, the parking garage is proposed that it might need to be underground. That would propose some technological difficulties in an area that has very shallow groundwater. Additional to the financial viability of the project is a concern for staff based on the occupancies and the rental rates assumed. It looks like some of the assumptions in the proposal assume an average Tri-Valley rent and occupancy rate when Livermore rental rates are just a little bit lower. And finally, the community has consistently expressed opposition to development in this area, so it seems unlikely that a project to bring this level of development to an area that already has significant traffic concerns would be very difficult for the community to accept. So therefore, staff cannot recommend moving forward with the project in this time and is recommending that that council reject the project. In response to comments that Mr. Colt should be allowed to continue through the original May 2016 deadline, staff would like to point out that because Mr. Colt missed the March deadline and is now coming in April, allowing the project to continue to come back for a final update in May would really only amount to between 11 and 25 additional days due to the staff report deadlines. We have to turn our staff reports 3 weeks ahead of the meeting. So if we went on May 9th, the staff report would be due in 11 days on April 22nd. If we went on May 23rd, it would be due on May 6th. So staff doesn't feel in this amount of additional time the project could be revised to meet all the concerns. In addition, the other items noted in the staff report, the city attorney has begun drafting open space ballot language, and it will be prepared in May to bring that back. And then with regard to the master planning process, staff has met with LARPD and the school district. And the good news there is LARPD staff has offered to lead a potential master plan project if one were to go forward. And at the January 27th LARPD board meeting, the board approved staff's participation in the project. Staff's meeting again with LARPD and the school district at the end of April, and we're prepared to bring back a draft outline of a master planning process in May. One note, though, we wouldn't be ready till the May 23rd meeting, and that meeting is really already booked with a downtown process, so we probably would come back at the first June meeting with that. So again, the recommendation of staff is to reject the project at this time and to direct staff to complete the other direction from the December 2015 meeting on the master plan process and the ballot language. That completes my staff report, and staff will now ask Mr. Mark Colt to come up and present his updated project, after which staff will be available to answer any questions. Okay.
Mr. Colt.
Yes.
You're on. Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, council members, it's a pleasure to be here today. Could I have the light turned on here? Yes. Yeah, on. So, given the city staff's report and their concerns, I thought that it would be more prudent to address them directly today. So, first of all, I'd like to address the public's concern and city staff's assertion that the PowerPoint presentation I submitted for this meeting is our proposal. It is not. The PowerPoint was simply intended to serve as an informational update about our project and progress. We're continuing to develop the project parameters and will submit a detailed proposal if we're allowed to continue. Why this project is in the best interest of the City of Livermore and of all parties. The City of Livermore. This project would remove all liabilities for the city to improve, convert, or continue to maintain their 85-acre golf course property. The city would benefit from increased sales tax and property tax revenues, would provide new amenities open to general public, and would include the creation of several new parks that would increase the recreational opportunities for Livermore residents, all at no cost to the city. The addition of 100,000 square feet of highly competitive Class A office space will further act to improve both the city's competitiveness with other Tri-Valley cities, its economic base, and its attractiveness to employers. The city has struggled to attract high-caliber employers and is lacking significant Class A office space or quality conference facilities. The addition of our project, as envisioned, would also increase Livermore's visibility and serve to increase tourism to the area as new employers, their employees, and business travelers would be introduced to the city. The viability of the city's other projects, including the downtown hotel, would be further improved due to these factors. The East Bay, as a whole, only has 3 facilities on the market that offer 100,000 square feet of contiguous Class A office space, and the lack of such a facility within the city limits is one of the preventative factors for many large businesses to even consider Livermore as a location for their enterprise. The project, by its existence, will further act to improve the security and welfare of the Springtown community. The security will be ensured by the presence of private security that will patrol and monitor the golf course at all times. It will negate the need for the city to increase police patrols and should act to generally reduce the impact of criminal activity in the vicinity of the project. For local businesses and stakeholders, local businesses will see the positive impact of a rejuvenated Springtown Golf Course and Business Center, as the increased traffic will no doubt provide a significant economic base for local merchants in Springtown and across the rest of Livermore. Additionally, the creation of a new attractive entrance to Springtown, the addition of quality jobs located in the neighborhood, along with the increased amenities provided by the project, will improve the neighborhood's image and serve to increase attractiveness of existing residential developments in the area. For open space supporters, this project would preserve the golf course's open space into perpetuity by establishing a commercially viable golf course operation. It would ensure that no development would ever occur on the 85 acres of the golf course. It would minimize the impact to wildlife dependent on the golf course's network of ponds and open spaces that would be potentially displaced if the city does decide to demolish the existing golf course. One of the primary arguments of open space supporters is that many people within the community do not golf and they are seeking other recreational opportunities. For those people, the project envisions the creation of several parks within parts of the golf course that are not within bounds for golf play and are currently not being utilized, where such recreational opportunities can manifest themselves, including potentially playground space, community garden space, barbecue areas, among others. Our concept further envisions the addition of new biking paths that will be open to the public. We promise to work with the proponents of the open space during the public engagement process to design these spaces for their benefit. For SHOA homeowners, this project, first of all, will protect homeowners' property values, as all homes directly located on the golf course derive a part of their value from the proximity to the golf course. If the golf course is replaced with some other reality, those homeowners stand to be significantly impacted. Second of all, as SHOA will be leasing their 5-acre owned property to investors, they will no longer have to maintain their increasingly aged buildings. This has the potential to substantially lower dues from members, as a significant portion of their current dues are utilized for maintenance of their commonly owned facilities. This will protect the financial future of the SHOA residents, especially for older residents who live on the fixed income, who will be significantly impacted by increasing dues to repair the SHOA's decrepit and out-of-code buildings. Members will furthermore benefit from free access to the golf course's amenities, the pools and jacuzzi, gym and locker rooms, and bocce ball courts for no fee as consideration for the issuance of the lease to the HOA property. Furthermore, the city's plans for open space have never adequately addressed the negative impact of such a plan to homeowners, especially with regard to the following issues. 1. How will the open space concept work when, by definition, it will not be monitored, where its location is one where it's completely encapsulated people's homes, and most of those homes do not even have fences, nor have ever had any fences, separating the backyards from the golf course? How will the city mitigate the already alarming trend of increased criminal activity on the golf course and homeless people starting to move in? There was already a homeless person who was squatting under the bridge next to the maintenance facility until he was removed by police. 2. How will the open space concept in this location mitigate the significant impact to wildlife dependent on the golf course and its ponds, including endangered species such as the red-legged frog? How will this be achieved if the open space plan includes demolishing golf course infrastructure, including potentially the ponds? All of these impacts will be mitigated by allowing this project to move forward. For non-HOA homeowners living within the vicinity of the golf course, they will also benefit from the protection of any impact to their property values that will be borne by them if the golf course is removed. Furthermore, those homeowners would now have increased recreational opportunities stemming from new parks and trails that would be added to existing golf course property. They will benefit from the increased security of the general neighborhood, and furthermore, they will be able to use all of the golf course amenities a bit for a fee, including the pools that were not open to the general public in the past. For all residents, they will benefit from reduction in crime due to having the golf course monitored 24/7, 365. Private security personnel will be hired to ensure security in the area. All residents will also benefit from the fact that none of their tax dollars will be utilized on the publicly owned golf course. Whether the city or LARPD operates some version of open space does not mitigate the fact that these operations are financed by taxpayers. All residents will be able to utilize new public parks and trails provided by the project, and will of course be able to utilize the golf course and its amenities a bit for fees, as all of its amenities will be open to the public. Now I'm going to address the assertions and comments made by city staff in the report. So regarding parking, we're fully aware of the parking requirements for the site and of course have taken them into consideration. The site is more than adequate to fulfill parking requirements. Based on our current estimates for the building site, which as I have mentioned are not yet finalized, we estimate required minimum parking yield to be 448 parking spaces. The existing parking lot can be reconfigured from its current 45-degree design to a more efficient 90-degree design to expand existing parking yield to approximately 110 spaces. The existing parking lot will be redesigned and expanded to accommodate an additional 70 above-ground parking spaces. The golf course facility building to be not larger than 13,000 square feet, based on our existing projection of 11,700 square feet, can accommodate approximately 50 spaces at a half level under the building. Our estimate that existing street parking at the site is approximately 20 spaces. These leaves 198 spaces that would be located in an underground parking structure beneath the Class A office building. Our parking specialists estimate for the cost of construction for the underground parking component is approximately $50,000 per space, or approximately $9.9 million and it's included in our projected cost of construction. And this cost reflects the increased complexity due to high groundwater levels. An unsightly above-ground parking structure has never been part of our project and is not under consideration for the site. Regarding traffic impact, city staff is incorrect in their assertion that entering SHOA property on Larkspur Drive from Bluebell Road is the only way drivers can access the SHOA property. Drivers originating from the First Street off-ramp of Interstate 580 can avoid utilizing Bluebell Road completely, but continuing past Bluebell Road via Springtown Boulevard and turning right on Rhododendron Drive and taking their first right to Larkspur Drive. Additionally, existing traffic congestion on Bluebell Road is comprised of drivers seeking to exit Springtown via Bluebell Road in the morning and entering Springtown via Bluebell Road in the evening. The additional trips generated by this proposed development would be not in addition to this flow of traffic, as these trips would be counter to the existing commute, as commuters would be entering, not exiting Springtown in the morning, and leaving, not entering Springtown in the evenings. Furthermore, the project has the potential to minimize the impact of the addition of these trips on Springtown Boulevard, Bluebell Drive, and Larkspur Drive, as addition of Class A office space would attract employees to relocate to Springtown and therefore reduce the amount of daily trips throughout the neighborhood. We're planning on conducting our own traffic study to fully understand the impact of our proposed development and on potential improvements to the current street design and infrastructure, including redesign of the intersections, perhaps utilizing traffic circles or the addition of traffic signals to better regulate the impacted intersections of Springtown Boulevard, Larkspur Drive, and Bluebell Road. Furthermore, we're planning to offer a bus bridge between BART and Dublin Pleasanton, which is only 9.3 miles away from the site, and between the site and downtown Livermore during lunch hours that would further reduce the amount of daily trips to the site. Regarding zoning, because we have not finalized the concept plan for the development of the property, we have not yet reached out to the city planning department to open this dialogue with them. The proposed uses all have been historically located on the site, so there's no anticipated change in the use of the site, just a configuration, layout, and massing of the buildings that house them. Thus, we're hopeful that no general plan amendment will be required. Although we are prepared to go through that process if that is in fact the case. We're also looking into the possibility of attracting government tenants that would allow the building to fall under e-zoning. The 85 acres of the city-owned golf course would not require any change in its zoning. It would remain open space into perpetuity. Only the SHOA-owned parcel could require zoning changes, but given that KB Home was allowed to rezone from commercial to residential across the street from this proposed development, we did not envision that this should be a constraint for the project. Regarding market and project feasibility, commercial rates are at historic highs and are continuing to grow. Demand for Class A office space is driven by the growth of major technology companies throughout the Bay Area. Those companies are increasingly competing on amenities as they seek to retain talent in the Bay Area. The East Bay, in particular, is attractive due to its proximity to both San Francisco and Silicon Valley, its talent-rich workforce, lower cost of living, and attractive work-life balance compared to either San Francisco or Silicon Valley. Indications point towards much stronger growth from both technology, professional, and business services sectors, thanks to improving overall economy and pricing pressures is driving more tenants to the East Bay. This market pressure is leading towards a proliferation of tech space users coming to the East Bay for cheaper rents and to follow a workforce that has already had a strong presence on the sunny side of the Bay. The East Bay continued with job gains in 2015, adding 21,100 jobs during the year. City staff assertion that Workday's planned development of a 430,000 square foot building or existing vacancies would impact the viability of this project is questionable. First of all, as far as we can determine, that development is planned to accommodate Workday's growing workforce and would not be entering the market as additional office space available for leasing, which is why we stated there would be no new developments planned, as this would not be competing development. Second of all, Workday's motivation for moving forward with their own development rather than leasing more space from existing properties underscores what is most important for them, like other technology companies in the region, is to be able to provide exceptional amenities to their employees. According to Mercury News, Workday could have leased some of the old buildings in the area, but they choose to construct a brand new building that meets the standards of what young tech engineers want. There are only 4 large blocks of vacant office space currently available of 100,000 square feet or more in the East Bay, according to JLL. Those blocks are located at Bishop Branch in San Ramon, at Pleasanton's Rosewood Commons, and the former Sears building in Oakland's Uptown neighborhood. Once SAP completes its move to Bishop Branch, its formerly occupied 2-building complex in Dublin, the 405,000 square foot East Bay Center 1 and 2 will enter the market. However, the chief motivation for their move was to offer employees better amenities than their existing facility. Amenities offered by East Bay Center 1 and 2 are limited to conference and training rooms and collaboration sites, cafe with indoor-outdoor dining, and a fitness center. Regarding the move by SAP, Dwayne Christensen, Director of Workplace Strategy at SAP, stated, "There's a lot of Class B space that we could have gone into," said Christensen. "That's not what SAP is about. We're very people-focused." We're confident that our new development will be able to successfully compete with all the legacy buildings in the Tri-Valley due to the fact the amenities provided will exceed or match other equivalents. In the San Francisco Bay Area today, in order to hire and retain the best tech talent, tenants are competing to lease or own the cool space and new space that feature premium amenities that easily translate to quality work-life balance. Our project and the city of Livermore offers an attractive lifestyle compared to the rest of the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, with plentiful dining and entertainment options downtown, wine country around the corner, plentiful parks, lakes, and open spaces within a short walk or drive from our location. Presence of national labs places Livermore squarely on the map of cutting-edge science and innovation, and we're confident that if we deliver quality Class A office space, tenants will buy into moving to Livermore. Pleasanton's Rosewood Commons is an excellent example to illustrate this point. When Swift acquired Rosewood Commons in 2014, the building was over 90% vacant. The first thing they did was add amenities to the site that would improve the building marketability with tech tenants. They added new amenities like basketball courts, putting greens, barbecue stations, bocce ball courts, and ping pong tables. These additions were an instant hit, and building vacancy improved to being 65% leased as of September of 2015. They were successful in attracting new tenants like software maker Ellie Mae, who leased 105,000 square feet initially and then added another 30,000. SmartZip Analytics, who leased 36, and ServiceMax, who leased 62. Asking rents also rose from $27 per square foot to $33. According to JLL,
if you could wind up, we got your additional half dozen pages, 4 pages here. If you could just wind up your conclusion.
Yeah, so let me just quickly then address the remaining sections. So while I did share our insights on the financial modeling and rental rates assumptions with the city staff, what I didn't mention to them, and that was perhaps an oversight, that those assumptions that they constitute our upside scenario and are meant to model the top line potential of the project for investors. As far as these upside projections go, which are designed to show the maximum potential of the project, we do not believe they're especially aggressive. Our base case modeling of rental rates begins at just $2.05 per square foot, which, as the city staff points out, was the average Class B rate in Livermore in 2015. We don't think that these assumptions are overly aggressive, and the compound annual growth rate that we're using is 1.96%. We're more than confident that a Class A facility will be able to charge considerably more than legacy Class B facilities in the city. Commercial occupancy rates in the base case also start at just 50% and increase at steady state up to a maximum of 80%.
Okay, if you could just wind up, please.
Sure. So regarding our lack of Congress, I'll wind up right now. When we present our concept to the City Council on December 7th, we outlined 2 options that had the potential to save the golf course. Option A involved the repurposing of the existing facilities to add a real restaurant to the golf course to allow it to have a more viable operation. However, after detailed analysis, work, and outreach to over 100 different golf course operators, we determined that this option was just not feasible. There are many different reasons, and you can read it for yourself in my piece of paper here, due to our time constrictions. But that process took from December, January to mid-February. And only in mid-February do we make that determination that we have to focus on this development project. Now, we did that because the council gave us a very accelerated timeline and instructed us to move forward with what could be done as quick as possible. Now, this type of a development project, it's a lot more complicated than the minimal project. As city staff mentioned, there's a lot of considerations. It's not just determining what happens with the 5 acres of the SHOA property, but with the rest of the 85 acres of the golf course. And we sincerely hope that you will grant us sufficient time so that we can bring the best proposal that can provide something for everyone rather than just a proposal. Even given a May deadline for submission is rushing it, although I'm confident if given at least until May 31st to submit a proposal, we'll be able to provide one. However, given the tight deadline, we would be unable to conduct extensive public engagement by that time. Ideally, we would have at least until September as our deadline for assembling the project team and submitting our proposal. Given the city staff's estimate that a master planning process could take from 6 months up to 2 years, we don't believe that the city would be exposed to additional risk by allowing us more time to develop this project. My goal and motivation has always been to improve our community, to prevent destruction of the golf course, to preserve our recreational open space, to prevent any new development going up in neighbors' backyards, to make communities safer, more prosperous, and prevent major change in the character of our family-friendly neighborhood. Given all the potential benefits to the stakeholders of the city, I truly believe that allowing this project to continue its development is in the best interest of all of the parties. We remain fully committed to bringing this project to fruition and sincerely hope that the council will allow for a fair process to continue so we can bring this project to your consideration. So I'm asking you today to please provide your direction and feedback regarding our proposed timeline and explain the necessity for a May submission deadline.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colton. Okay, questions for staff at this point? Any questions?
One.
Yes. Vice Mayor?
How many applications approximately do we have in the pipeline for that amount of Class A office space currently in Livermore?
We have no applications for construction of anything like that. In reviewing Class A office and the demand for Class A office in Livermore, I engaged Colliers International and Lee and Associates. Jessica Mauser, who is one of the longtime commercial brokers in town, along with Mark Triska, who is also one of the longtime commercial brokers. They both do extensive work throughout the entire Tri-Valley, not just in Livermore. They both concluded that there is very little market demand for Class A office, and there historically has been very little demand for Class A office in Livermore. When you look at offices, you've got essentially 3 different categories. You have a Class A, which demands the highest price, and those are the buildings that are the typical multi-story steel frame buildings that have a tremendous amount of amenities around them and within them, and they're located very close to mass transit BART stations. Then you have Class B office space, which is a notch below that doesn't have that level of amenity and traditionally doesn't have the mass transit around it. And then the last category is what's called a flex space, which is traditionally put into a tilt-up building, and it's usually combined with an office warehouse type application. As I mentioned, in reviewing this proposal with these 2 individuals, they said that we currently have about 47,000 square feet of Class A throughout the entire city. That's all in the downtown. It's all in the Livermore Valley Plaza on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the 2 Madden buildings. Those buildings were built several years ago, and to date there's still about 6,000 square feet that has not been built out, has not been leased. With respect to Class B, while we do have Class B office space in town, it struggles as well. As an example, there is the Vineyard Business Park, which is out on Greenville. It's a 2-story building, standalone office building that was built many years ago. It currently has about a 60% occupancy. In terms of flex space, there is a demand for flex space in Livermore. There always has been. But in terms of Class A, very, very little demand.
May I add to that for a second? So as of Q4 2015, Colliers is tracking 33 tenant requirements that are seeking 100,000 square feet or more in Silicon Valley. According to their available inventory, these 33 tenants only have 17 options for contiguous office spaces of 100,000 square feet or greater to choose from. In Silicon Valley, there was 10.3 million square feet of absorption measured during 2015. This was both 15% higher than 2014, and it was the highest level of absorption measured since Colliers began tracking absorption statistics in 1988. So based on the demand for Class A office space, the significant demand is all for buildings in contiguous space of at least 100,000 square feet. And that's exactly why this project is designed to provide that.
Mayor, I had a follow-up question too, but go ahead if you
Yeah, I
want to
just want to add to that. The Colliers document that was presented is authored by Mark Triska, who is one of the two individuals that I talked to. And again, he concluded that you do not have this level of demand for Class A office space. You don't have any demand for Class A office space in Livermore.
Because there's no such space.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I just wanted to, I suppose there's two or more sides to this issue, but for the members of the audience at night listening at home, I'm entering my 5th year here, and I can't remember an application for that amount or more of Class A office space. And for those that don't remember my background, when I was the fire chief of Livermore Pleasanton, the fields across from the entrance to the Alameda County Fairgrounds, where there's today a shopping center, Jack in the Box restaurant, and housing, that was originally master planned and promised to be a large Class A office park right at Burnell and 680. It never got built. Bishop Ranch, some of the new East Dublin around the BART station have consumed the predominant large office markets in the Tri-Valley historically and continue to do so. So while I appreciate the research and interest, I just wanted to ask staff, if we had pent-up demand, it would be in the development pipeline. I wanted to ensure that my recollection was still consistent with what staff was currently processing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spadovsky.
And related to that question, you were describing the available office space currently and what's planned for the future, but we do have, could you describe, we do have other areas that are zoned that would allow for Class A office space if somebody were to come in. Is that correct? Or
Yes, we do.
Okay, and where would that, do you have a few general locations?
Typically, office space is allowed in a number of areas along the freeway, in the downtown. I don't know that we could get an additional 100,000 square feet in the downtown. But along the freeway, there's a number of areas that could accommodate, if there was a demand, could accommodate that size of development.
And so in the report, we were, in the staff report, you were talking about the Class A vacancy rates for Dublin, Pleasanton, and San Ramon. I believe Dublin just, was it Pleasanton that had a recent, right, they have a high occupancy or unoccupied rate of Class A office space?
Yeah, basically, as noted in the Colliers report, with the pending vacancies that have come from the Workday 400,000 square feet coming on, SAP vacating some space. Basically, right now, there's 2.1 million square feet of Class A office space in the Tri-Valley that's vacant, plus an additional 500,000 square feet that's expected to come on in the next year and a half.
And the occupancy or the vacant space in Bishop Ranch is around?
Oh, let's see.
I think I remember reading that as in the 80s.
I should have it.
I wouldn't know what it is currently.
80, 85?
So their occupancy, last time I checked, was around 83%.
And you're assuming that you'll get 95% eventually at build out? Did I read that correctly?
I'm assuming that, so we're talking about base case assumptions and upside assumptions. But realistically, the project is targeting one single tenant to take the whole space. If we can get that tenant, the whole space should be fully leased.
95 or you're saying
95 or higher.
So you're going to exceed the occupancy rate of Bishop Ranch. That's what you're saying?
Ideally, because it's a single tenant facility.
Okay. And then you also mentioned, just one quick question, hopefully attracting a government tenant.
Yes.
Do you have anybody in mind? I don't know typically government agencies that lease out Class A office space, but...
Well, we have several ideas in mind. but I don't want to get too far into that.
Well, I'd like to know so I could start.
Well, first of all, once we define the project parameters and we can go talk to tenants, we're hoping to target almost all the government agencies that we could, because like you said, that's sort of one of the potential requirements for the site. Obviously, the Livermore Laboratory would be the first place that we would stop. We would talk to other agencies, federal, state, local.
Gotcha.
Councilor Turner, questions, comments, questions at this point? No. Okay. Outreach, you said you contacted 100 firms, 5 expressed an interest, 15 expressed interest in managing the course. You completed a walkthrough with 2 firms. And developing a turnkey lease structure with Kemper Sports. The turnkey, is that that they would operate the facility, or are they an investment partner?
So that's exactly what we're developing. The 2 scenarios that we're working on right now, scenario 1 would be a pure lease, where the investors would provide the money for the improvements for the golf course directly, and then Kemper would just lease the new facilities and the golf course from us at market rates for the facilities. Or option B is if Kemper directly provides the approximate $2 million needed for the improvements of the golf course, and then we would discount their initial rates until they recoup that investment. So those are the 2 scenarios that we're currently developing. But ideally, we would prefer the investment scenario because we want, first of all, them to have skin in the game, right? And second of all, we think that because they would be in charge of designing the new golf course, right? We want that capital to be used most efficiently. So if it comes from their pocket, they're going to spend it more efficiently.
Do you have letters of intent from any of the investors at this point?
So we have letters of intent, but obviously since the project isn't fully spec'd out, they're not for any specific dollar amounts. Back in December, we provided one LOI for you guys from Technology Square Partners, who are a institutional investor based in Connecticut. They represent a family office, and they have investment capacity of up to $50 million for this type of a project. Obviously, there's also other investors that we're talking to, but right now I can't disclose that because we're under NDAs. And if we're allowed to continue, we'll certainly provide those letters of intent for you when we present our proposals. That'll outline the amount of capital contribution those investors will be willing to provide.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, comments for later? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Colt. We've got a whole bunch of folks that wish to comment on this. I've got about 20 cards. I think that's reasonable, so I'd ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, if you would. If you agree, it's not necessarily to repeat the entire comments. You can just say, hey, I like what he said, and we can move this ahead. So I've got, I said, 20 cards. Let's start with Betty Murillo. You're on. Rick Hannon and Wayne Wright.
Okay, Mayor Marchand and the City Council. I'm glad I'm here tonight, and I'm a native daughter, and my folks were native here, and my family has been here since 1908 and 1912. So we've been here a long time. Tonight I will be addressing several issues. We are hoping that you will allow Mark Colt's proposal to be extended. We are working together to bring about a proposal that will satisfy everyone's needs in the Springtown community, Springtown homeowners members, and the City of Livermore. The SHOA wants to work with everyone. Many ideas are better than one. We hope it will knock your socks off. That's what we're looking to do. We want to be innovative, have a beautiful and aesthetically pleasing building, not an ugly gray office building like some people think that we would have. Who in their right mind would want something like that? Luscious grounds and gardens providing nooks and crannies for private conversations. This building could provide something for everyone. Our plans would invite all to visit and take part in. We have seen architectural plans that are exquisite, breathtaking, and address any and all parking problems. We are not snake oil salesmen. We will be hiding nothing. Everything will be disclosed. We will be an open book. I insist on it, and so does every one of our board members. We are required by law to represent all, not just a few. And our SHOA members will insist upon it, as they should. We will have lawyers look at all documents and have our members vote on everything. We have plenty of acreage if the golf course lands are made available. We could add dog runs for dogs to run without their leash, pocket parks, sustainable gardens, some trails, a gazebo, outdoor events, anything and everything is possible. Even rooftop gardens. That's my favorite. This could be a wonderful asset for the entire town of Livermore. Investors paying for everything. The city and taxpayers pay nothing. We have golf companies that are interested in joining us as investors. They know that the golf course can succeed, otherwise they would not be interested. Many years ago, people worked and lived in their communities. We could bring that back with this beautifully grand and exquisite Class A office building / country club. People living and working in their own community. Gee, what a novel idea. It could happen with this project. We want this chance to build a wonderful community. It will have something for everyone. City of Livermore, you have the opportunity to explore this wonderful opportunity with us and be a part of the solution. Join us. Let us dream together. We have 260 homes that sit on the golf course acres. Our backyards abut the course. Many yards are only 6 feet deep. We are concerned about vandalism, burglars, excessive noise, drug trafficking, and other nefarious activities, parking and traffic problems, all in our backyards. Since the golf course closed, we've had people walking dogs without leashes, and these dogs end up in our backyards. We have had police chase burglars on the golf course, catching them with stolen property. Homeless person living under the bridge, and the person brought him home, and the guy was robbed. A Springtown resident, no less. Okay, that's it for that one. Usually when cities build parks today, they build them as a separate entity away from homes because of the reasons mentioned above. Most parks in residential areas don't have bathrooms, or the bathrooms are locked because of these various incidences. People in a residential area no longer send their children to play in a residential park on their own because of these types of activities. It is too dangerous. The golf course has always provided us a measure of safety because they check in and check out. We know who is on the course, and they also act as our eyes and report anything suspicious. There are at least 15 residential parks in our north side of town, plus walking trails, not to mention the open wildlife preserve, a new preserve to be added soon. Brushy Peak, Los Vaqueros, 5 minutes up Fasco Road, and its various interconnected trails. The new high school will also have park and walking trails. We already have plenty of parks. Livermore, join us with this new development. Dream big. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murillo. Rick Hannon, Wayne Wright, Gail Travers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I hope to be the first one to stay under the 3-minute limit. So here I go. Since before 1971, no one has been able to turn a profit on Springtown Golf Course despite a series of different operators, consultations with golf expert, and infusion of city funds. What makes them think that they can make it survive when nobody else has been able to do that? And with beautiful golf courses like Sunol closing, how can a distressed golf course like Springtown survive? I want to say I fully support staff's analysis of the parking, the traffic, zoning information, as well as the occupancy rate and public acceptance. It's very well written, and it saved me a lot of work in trying to analyze it myself. I was very disappointed in the, I thought it was a proposal, but it's marketing piece. It's all smoke and mirrors. I would have thought after 3 months and an extension, there's plenty of time to put forth more than just a fluff marketing piece. There's no business plan, no profit and loss, no balance sheets, no income statement. There's precious little information from which to make an informed financial decision on. Where's the cash flow that's supposed to pay the operation and upkeep of the golf course? And if this is a failure, who takes the risk? The investors, the HOA, the people who make up the HOA. Has an attorney been consulted about the potential risk? In conclusion, I fully agree with staff's conclusion that with the developmental impact, site constraints, lack of financial viability, and lack of public acceptance, I strongly urge the City Council to reject this proposal and not consider any further extension. We've wasted enough time already. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hannon. Wayne Wright, Gail Travers, and Paul Swanson.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on this. I'm a member of the North Livermore Alliance and a proponent for open space. We live adjacent to the golf course and want to voice our strong vote for open space. We have a view of the course and have noticed that since it is closed, there have been more and more people using the open space for walking dogs, bike riding, kite flying, frisbee tossing, and for leisure walks and family outings. We also have seen an increase in natural wildlife such as pheasants, geese, egrets, coyotes, and falcons. I would like to make a few quick points today. One is that as I listen to this, there's really a consistent theme between the people that want the golf course and people like my group that are looking for open space. No development and just really want the open space. And the golf course is just generally a mechanism to try to keep that open space for what they say is perpetuity, but it really isn't necessary to do that, to have that. When they're talking about occupancy, I'd like to point out that one tenant equals 100% occupancy, one tenant moving out equals 100% vacancy rate. And I'm wondering how they're going to maintain the expenses on their proposal on a 49-year period or horizon in a lease. We've always witnessed ups and downs in the economy during the last 50 years. So it's given that at some point in time, there's going to be some stresses on finance to support their proposal. So the proposed office development, while well-intentioned, cannot guarantee that should there be a downturn in the economy, that the proposed office space development will be able to service the debt while maintaining the golf course and not put homeowners at financial risk. The fact that the proposal has potential risk to owners, some of them on fixed income, should be reason enough to veto the proposal. This risk will have a negative impact on the future sale values of homes, as buyers will need to have this risk disclosed to them at time of sale will not be viewed as a benefit of the home ownership in the area. It is apparent that the sport of golfing is declining and that it is harder for any golf course to sustain itself. Witness the recent closure of Sunol as an example, which drew people from Fremont as well as the Tri-Valley, so they had a bigger pool of golfers to choose from. I would like, this one though is important to me. Many of the homes on this golf course have 8-foot lots. I'm a real estate broker, so I understand value. I've sold for over 30 years. When I see these lots, they have value in their home if they sell it today because a buyer can see the open space. I propose that the master plan be changed and that 50 feet be added to these lots so that these lots have bigger yards that will add value to these homeowners that want this open space. It could be sold to them for a nominal fee, maybe the cost of fencing, to have fencing along the back ends of those lots. So it cost an owner maybe $2,000, as I think 30 feet is $30 a linear foot. That is probably the most important thing, and what I want to say to you today is that I wish that you would change the master plan, give these owners a larger rear lot, and I think that this would solve the issues on the open space. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Gail Travers, Paul Swanson, and Janet Cochran, Craig and Kathy Griggs.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Mayor Marchand, Vice Mayor Gary, and all City Council members for their decision last December to place an initiative on this November's ballot, which, when it passes, will preserve the Springtown Golf Course lands as permanent open space, changeable only by a majority vote of Livermore residents. Regardless of the difference of opinion between those advocating its conversion to park space and those committed to preservation of its historic use as a golf course, the entire Springtown community is united in its commitment to prevent any future development on golf course lands. Next, as the detailed presentation of Mark Cole's proposal was supposed to be scheduled for 6 months out from the December 7th special meeting, and this point in the process was meant to be only a check-in on progress, I'm asking that you allow him at least the remainder of that time before rendering a formal decision. As many people were unavailable much of December due to the holidays, there have really been just 3 months where all participants necessary for the proposed project were available. And since the written update needed to be submitted to city staff by March 7th to qualify for inclusion on the March 28th agenda, that really allowed just 2 months of real work time. And so I'm asking for at least the remaining time which was approved last December. It seems as if city staff wants to pass judgment on Mr. Cole's proposal prematurely based on concerns over items he is currently in the middle of defining the answers to. Additionally, many of the concerns stated in regards to his proposal would also be relevant to development of a community park. City staff is concerned about parking and traffic related to the facilities proposed, but a community park with the services described by those advocating for conversion of the golf course would also create issues with parking and traffic. If the park plan is successful, things won't remain as they have the past few months, with just a handful of Springtown residents using portions of the 85 acres to run their dogs and walk with their families. It won't enjoy the same quiet use if sports fields are built, attracting large numbers of users. If successful, this 85-acre community park will be available to nearly 80,000 Livermore residents, plus people from nearby communities. And everyone who comes across the freeway to this new park will be driving on Springtown streets looking for a place to park their cars. In contrast to a community park that will cost money without providing financial returns, the new facilities being proposed will bring in revenue to the city, as well as create new jobs and the chance for more Livermore residents to work close to home. And there will also be space in the new complex and golf course design for Springtown residents to have open space for their use. In response to input from the community, as well as recommendation by golf course operators, the proposal includes provision for community gardens and walking trails in conjunction with a more effective redesign of the golf course. There's going to be something here for everyone, so it seems of real benefit to allow this proposal to fully develop. Regarding city staff concerns around financing, one of the advantages of Mr. Colt's proposal is that the investor won't need to spend money on property acquisition, as the land will be leased to them and not purchased. This makes the project more financially viable, freeing up initial investment capital and providing for a much stronger return on investment. Investors believe the refurbished golf course will attract high-end tenants who will be willing to pay higher office rents to attract quality employees interested in the golf course, gym, and restaurant. It's this combination of new, attractive office space in conjunction with the golf course and other high-end amenities that is so appealing to investors. The two drive each other in terms of success. I don't see where there are any negatives in allowing Mr. Colt the full 6 months to more fully develop his proposal. The open space master planning process and feasibility assessment are still underway, and the golf course is still under temporary closure. I'd like to hear what everyone has to say at the end of the full 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Swanson, Janet Cochran, Craig and Kathy Griggs, and David Craig.
Thank you. I wanted to bring a tin can so I could kick it down the road, but I was told that was inappropriate.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm reading this on behalf of Sean McMiniman, who couldn't be here tonight. Mr. Mayor, honorable council members, and city staff, thank you for your time and consideration of this matter. I urge you to follow the advice of staff and stop Mr. Colt and the Springtown Partners plan and to permanently close the Springtown Golf Course. We need to move on from this and move forward with the process of community input to passive open space uses of the land. A small but vocal HOA has been railroading the process of providing services to North Livermore residents for years now by continuing to insist that a rundown golf course in their backyards is the best use of the land and of city resources. The city has already wasted or lost money on this that would have been well spent elsewhere. 505 homes out of over 8,000 in North Livermore, 20 to 30 people in green t-shirts yelling and screaming and spreading falsehoods about the city wanting to sell the land and build high-rise, low-income housing so they can have their big open backyard at our expense. They are so against development, but now they want to build a 3+ story office building? Come on. Now they think they will get something for nothing. The Springtown HOA facilities are in need of more than $1 million in repairs. Rather than take a loan out like the rest of us would do, they want the rest of us to suffer the traffic, pollution, and visual effects of a 3 to 5 story, 100,000 square foot office building so the Mr. Colt scheme can supposedly pay for the new facility for the HOA. While the smart move, in my opinion, would be to take out a loan for the necessary repairs, a loan which would cost each of the homeowners about $11 a month. Mr. Colt's plan as presented is nothing but fluff. There's no solidity, no financial assurances, no real plan. He cherry picks facts to try and show a need for Class A office space, then expects us to believe the renters will pay a premium rental to be in Springtown. He says they put input from the HOA membership on the project, an astounding 96 responses to a survey, 96 out of 505. I saw the survey. It simply asks what amenities the residents would like to see in their new HOA building and how often they would use them. I have attached a copy for you. You've given the staff. I'm sure that a possible response have been, hell no, don't you dare enter into this risky venture on my behalf with my HOA dues. We'd have seen what the other 409 households had to say. Mr. Cole does not address the environmental impact of excavating for an underground garage. He has not addressed the traffic impacts, nor harsh reality that there is no way to mitigate these impacts. I drive on Bluebell every day. I sometimes take the Springtown Road. I always end up at that intersection. Always. There's no way around it. And I don't want to see this huge eyesore in front of my home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Janet Cochran, Craig and Kathy Griggs. You're speaking for all of them?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Janet Cochran Craig, and I own a home on Hollyhock. And Kathy Griggs has asked me to speak on her behalf as well. Our family has owned the home on Hollyhock for over 30 years. Most of the family has golfed on the golf course over most of the years. I support Mark Colt and his proposal. I wish that you would give him the opportunity to, as you mentioned in December, of a May deadline, and please review that and accept his proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Craig. David Craig, Martha Metzliff, Nofranian.
Okay, I'll keep this very quick. Thank you for seeing us tonight. Asking you to hold up to what you've already promised to do and give Mark the time to present a viable proposal. In the amount of time he's had, he's made quite a bit of progress, but staff knows very well that the amount of time he had was insufficient, and I think he's gone quite a ways in the amount of time he's had. Just let him see it to fruition. The possibilities here are very good, so let's see it to the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Thank you. Martha Metzliff Nofranian, Deborah McMenamin, and S.C. Vincent.
Thank you. I am here speaking on behalf of two people who couldn't be here. First is Al Franz, and he emailed you earlier and says, "Dear Mr. Marchand, as I am unable to attend the City Council meeting this evening, I am emailing you with my support for the open space in Livermore and stopping the development of a multi-story office building at the former municipal golf course. In short, I attended the Springtown open space hearing at the Elks Lodge on December 7th and am convinced that the open space option is the only viable alternative. Mr. Colt's ideas present nothing new and nothing workable. Specifically, I wish to address one option raised at that time, dual use. That is, allowing golfers and hikers to use the space simultaneously. I am a golfer, and I would venture to say no competent golfer would want to play golf on a course while non-golfing pedestrians are walking through it. I am also a hiker, and do not believe that any self-respecting hiker would want to hike through an area where golf balls are flying through the air. The dual-use concept is thus ridiculous. In fact, I believe that any dual-use or multi-purpose proposal is not viable. Thank you for all of your efforts. Sincerely, Gregory Allen Franz, golfer, hiker, and former Lawrence Livermore National Lab scientist." And the second is from Jacob Anderson. It says, "Dear City Council, as a member of the Springtown Homeowners Association, I thought it is important that I lend my thoughts to the current proposal by Mr. Colt. To me, this deal feels shady and one of the many reasons I am not supporting it. I just don't understand how an office building can cover its own cost and support a failing golf course, $90,000 to $250,000 a year, and Springtown HOA buildings. Also, who would want to invest in that? I for sure wouldn't even come close to putting any money into a business that is there to support a second business with a long-term track record of not returning any profits. I at least wouldn't expect to gain any profits from it. please reject the proposal presented by Mr. Colt. I feel that giving this proposal more time would hurt the process of converting the land to open space option and would waste the city's time and money. I am excited to see what the city will do with the land to keep it open space and help the Springtown area keep beautiful and maintain the current feel of the neighborhood. Thank you, Jacob Anderson. And I would like to add my 2 cents that we are also a Springtown Homeowners Association members, and since this proposal was first brought to our attention in November, I have asked the board multiple times what the voting requirements of the HOA needs to be, and I'm constantly getting the "we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you." So there's not a lot of effort put towards to show everybody what everything is happening, because Betty has mentioned she has seen architectural layouts and possible drawings. We had a meeting last week where architectural drawings were not available. They haven't been made yet. So I'm curious as to why a certain select group of people have seen things and the rest of the 500 and so homes hasn't. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Deborah McMenamin, S.C. Vincent, and Emily Bloomer.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Deborah McMenamin. I'm a Springtown resident and a member of the North Livermore Community Alliance. The proposal, or mere PowerPoint, presented to Council by Mr. Colt on behalf of the Springtown Partners for the development of the HOA-owned property at the entry to Springtown, represents a project that is completely impractical. It is suggested that 2 separate buildings be erected on this small lot, one of them being up to a 4-story Class A office building. Given the proposed square footage, I cannot see how the project will otherwise be confined to the property owned by the HOA. Additionally, these buildings, based on their square footage, would require the construction of approximately 460 parking spaces. To put this in perspective, the current parking lot on the site has 128 or less spaces. The parking garage downtown has 508. To accommodate a garage of the needed size on this lot, it would have to be built underground, which Mr. Colt acknowledges. It would be astoundingly expensive to build and maybe not even possible given Springtown's high water table. By city estimates, an above-ground structure of this size would run $16 to $25 million. I would also question how the construction of a large underground garage would affect the flow of groundwater in this area and what consequences that might have on nearby businesses, homes, and roadways. Homes in the building's shadow, particularly those on Larkspur Drive and Primrose Lane, would likely be devalued, including some within the HOA. Is the HOA willing to sacrifice some of their members' financial solvency to retain a subpar 9-hole golf course in the backyards of a minority of their members? Is every member supportive of this project and willing to take on the financial liability this project would entail? To my knowledge, the HOA to date has not even asked their members to vote to pursue this project. They have only sent out a survey inquiring what amenities members would like to see in the new clubhouse. To that end, Mr. Colt reported that they have had only 96 out of 505 homeowners respond to that survey. That suggests apathy, not enthusiastic support. The zoning designation for the HOA site is incompatible with this project. The project does not fit into the existing neighborhood well. With the exception of the motels on the freeway's edge, this is a residential area with a single gas station and small businesses serving locals. I cannot see it attracting a significant number of tenants, not with the rent estimates Mr. Colts projects, nor with the mass of competition that's already available in surrounding areas and within Livermore itself. The investors as Springtown Partners are not going to allow themselves to be put at risk. It will be the HOA and ultimately the citizens of Livermore who will suffer in the event of failure. I respectfully request the council reject this project at this time in its entirety with no further consideration. Close the Springtown Golf Course permanently and allow it to be transformed into open space for the betterment of the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McMenamin. S.C. Vincent, Emily Bloomer, Tim Tukalski.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and staff. My name is Sue Vincent, and I live on Primrose Lane. My house backs up to the parking lot for the golf course / open space. Some of the people have mentioned they don't want to affect the backyards of their HOA members, of which I am one. I think a building of this sort would definitely affect me and the value of my home. And at the meeting the other night for the HOA members, in the words of Mr. Colt, we are not saving the golf course. The golf course is saving us. I don't like that kind of subterfuge, and I will not support voting for any kind of development of that sort. I would like to see open space in perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vincent. Emily Bloomer, Tim Tukalski, and Jeff Tukalski.
Good evening.
The little person.
I am a real person. The last time I addressed you, I was very pregnant. I have now had the baby, which is wonderful. So
New developments.
yeah, and a wonderful one at that.
It is.
This is the back behind you.
Oh, thank you. Good. I'm glad. As I stand here tonight, I am here to address an amusing thing that has been going on in my backyard. Since the golf course has closed, we have had a wonderful array of people. We've had people walking dogs, we've had families, we've had people walking their kids. We've even had golfers, rogue golfers. And this amusing thing has happened where we have those who are traditionalists and golf the course clockwise. We have those who are looking to mix things up and are going counterclockwise. So I'm really concerned between the counterclockwise golfers and the clockwise golfers that we're going to end up with some sort of accident, because there are also dogs with their owners on this property. We have a lot of people who are just relishing the space. As a mayor, as a council members and committee, can you please tell me what can happen, what kind of safety measures can go in place so that no one gets hurt? Is there anything that can be done?
Go ahead and finish your comments, and then we'll relay those questions to staff after your
Okay,
comments.
that would be great. Then I will proceed. In my last address to the council, which you hear so many, you might not remember, and that's just fine. I came and I stood here and I said, we just moved here. And what a wonderful place Livermore is. It's so great. They even ask you to sort out your trash into different areas, into different bins. And how we have lived all over the country. We've lived in Missouri, Utah, Georgia, and we live here. And this is by far the most progressive place we've ever lived. And I feel like the golf course is a thing that my generation is kind of phasing out. And I say that with respect to the community who is here, who is established, who bought their homes with the intent that the golf course would always be there. I respect these people. And with that respect, I say, please look towards the future. California is coming out of a dreadful drought, one in which it will take years to recover. Having a golf course means having to water it. I have now been looking out my window and seeing the sprinkler system going. That is water coming out of a reservoir that is struggling to be filled. This is a problem that must be addressed, if for no other reason than the water. Thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, that's Judy Erlinson, who is in charge of the whole trash and recycling program. So that's the lady you have to thank for that great program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, and congratulations. Tim Tukalski.
Good evening, John, City Council, City staff. My name is Tim Tukalski. I've been a 20-plus Livermorean. I'm a past chair of the Livermore Chamber of Commerce and actually on the board of the Livermore Chamber of Commerce, although with full disclosure, I am not representing the Chamber of Commerce, but I am representing myself as a resident and my son, who is actually a resident of Springtown and on the golf course. I got to say, this is probably the biggest no-brainer in the history of no-brainers. And I'm amazed that, with all due respect to a lot of the people, including city staff, all of a sudden everybody has an MBA and knows exactly what investors want and what they don't want. I don't know why the city isn't ecstatic that an investor group potentially wants to invest $50 million in Livermore. Now, I got to admit that this young man over here, I had my doubts. I still have my doubts. I'm sure you have your doubts. But why not give him a chance? It's not costing the city anything right now to at least fulfill the promise that they made, which they would consider a proposal within a very compressed time frame, you must admit. And I'm appalled, actually, that city staff is recommending to you to disavow or reject a proposal that hasn't even been proposed yet. So I parrot a lot of the people to say, please give him at least until what you promised, and hopefully consider his timeline to get what could be a huge gem to the city of Livermore. Quite honestly, it could be a win-win to everybody. So I'm here to ask you for that consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tukalski. We briefly forgot there, but that's okay. We'll recover.
What did I forget?
No, you didn't forget anything. We don't applaud, because if I allow applause, I have to allow booing. So we just briefly forgot, but we'll get back. Jeff Tukalski, Jason Kane, Les Edwards.
Hello, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Jeff Tukalski. I live on Marigold Road. I live on the golf course. I actually bought a home there about 2 years ago. I love golf, wanted to play golf. But besides the golf course, things don't stay static, they change. There's a lot of variables that we're not taking into consideration here. And, you know, Springtown is a place where I went to try to start a family, and I could afford it. And more millennials like me are gonna be doing the same thing. And they like being close to where they work. They like having more amenities. The technology wants to fill the spot. I mean, what kid doesn't have an iPhone nowadays? Just, I mean, think in the future if you guys can. It makes sense. I mean, it's common sense. If you can't figure that out, I mean, I audit companies all over the place, and I see business transactions, and they're given plenty of time, and I kind of wonder why you guys are trying to push it so quickly, and why are you trying to take something that takes to develop? I mean, if I did that in my profession, I wouldn't get the job if I had to push it so quickly. There's no way I could go through and present to the client to try to get something done if you're pushing so quickly, and half of you guys aren't looking at me anyways. But anyways, just give them more time. That's all I want, and I think it's more beneficial, because if you think about it, you got an open space, you guys are gonna have to come up with the revenues for that. How are you guys gonna do that? You got this, the revenues are already there. No liability on your back, but yeah, it's your decision. I thought it was ours.
Thank you, Mr. Tukalski. Jason Kane, Les Edwards, Joe Copps.
I promise I'm going to try to do this quickly, but I keep getting curves thrown at me. It's also hard to do something in 3 minutes that has so much passion in it for many of us. But what we're talking about, I believe, is integrity. You know, there's a member of the seated council now that wants this to go on the ballot. 6 figures worth of money, plus why? It's already open space. Why do you have to do that? Well, there's a good reason why you have to. Because in 1973, when the then mayor and city council and city attorney said, we're going to keep this a golf course, it's the right thing to do, the seated council thinks their words are meaningless. They're not willing to support them. So getting it on the ballot's good, because you might be treated the same way by a successive council. It would be sad. But we're talking about integrity, supporting the people in city government that made a decision, and ask future councils to follow through on it. It's very sad. It really is. And it was a promise. Promise got broken. I have so many notes, so many things. Let me deal with Mr. Greenwood first. First of all, when people talk about a rundown golf course, just so people know, I ran the golf course for a period of time, managed it. I worked there for the entire time that Sycamore had it. I asked Mr. Greenwood at a meeting, I said, how did you give the contract to Sycamore? He said, they had experience. They ran Tracy Country Club. No, they didn't. Sycamore was the worst people, the best people in terms of intent. They went way past anybody else would have gone through the losses they went, including a home of one of the partners. But Mr. Greenwood said to me, they ran Tracy. No, they didn't. They mowed the grass and took care of the sands in Tracy. They had no experience running a golf course, a pro shop, a restaurant. And I'll go further and say that the city is to blame for the condition of the course, the way it ended up getting worse and worse. Because I don't know, people have homes that they lease out to renters. They go in periodically and see how they're doing. City didn't do it. Mr. Schaefer, you're a golfer, an accomplished one. When's the last time you played golf? Not a couple of shots. Played golf at Springtown. Is that never? Is that what you're telling me? Right. I don't think anybody here that played golf ever did it. The last city manager was almost proud that she didn't. This was a very valuable commodity for the city. And the city let it get run down to a point that was absolutely absurd. They didn't take care of it. Now, the course gets blamed. Ridiculous. It's a fine course. It's what we used to call our ratty little course that we love. We have no pretensions about what it is, but we were promised that we buy a house on this course. That's what it's going to be. And for time, when they're talking about time for Mr. Colt to get his project together, keep in mind, you guys have taken over 40 years to think about maybe changing it from a golf course. Over 40 years, give them some time. Let's see what happens. And I have to tell you, the golf course should be continued as a golf course now. I made a proposal to Mr. Greenwood when the course was first closing. I tried to get in touch with the city manager. He never got back to me. We could have maintained this course and ran it as a golf course so that the city actually could have turned a profit. But no, they didn't care. As far as open space goes, you can stand near where the creeks come together, the creek referred to as the Unknown Creek and Altamont Creek. And if you stretch out one hand, you have the new trail from Tri-Valley Creeks. Stretch out the other hand, you have open space that has been reverted. It's protecting the two species of bird's beak that grow almost nowhere else, but it's there. It's not people's backyards. We have paths where people can ride bikes around the course. They can walk around the course, not in people's backyard. I've called the police many times. People walk their dogs without leashes. As far as I know, it's illegal in the city, except for one of those parks at the same convergence of the creeks. There are dog parks where you can let your dogs run. There are two, one for little dogs, one for big dogs. They can have their they can have their fun and exercise. But on the golf course, especially when there are homes with no fences, it's a liability waiting to happen. You know what? The city police have never responded to my request to ask those people to not break the law. I do have to address what people talk about with open space on top of it. When the city first wanted to close the course, 2007, 2008, I got in touch with the Sierra Club, Fish and Game, Wildlife. The Sierra Club supported it be continued as a course. Fish and Game, in response to my question, do you know if the wildlife we have, this unique ecology, because it is very rich, does it exist because it's a golf course or in spite of it? And they couldn't answer. It might be the sound of the mowers, these animals, like we don't know. But you have the San Joaquin kit fox. You have tons of breeding white-tailed kites.
Finish up your thoughts, please.
Yeah. Well, you know, I do think it is truly unfair to restrict us to 3 minutes on a subject like this, because this is a very heartfelt subject. I can't come close to what I want to say, except I will say one thing. I'll make it real fast. So I read in the paper, you guys want $6 million for your new chambers. And you kind of want it like an amphitheater. And I hope I'm wrong, but I thought I read it seats 22 people more than this. City's going to make a lot of money on that, just like they make a lot of money at the Civic Center. The fountain by the recycling plant, that was a very, very, very good investment. But for 22 more people, you're going to put $6 million into that. Amazing. Boggles my mind. We're not talking about, I mean, that's money that this course could just resurge with. Absolutely ludicrous. I have this image of the city council wearing togas in this amphitheater. And I have to tell you, the thought that came to mind, the real thought that came to mind, was what Shakespeare had Mark Antony say at the funeral of Caesar. Remember, the evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. That was the quote. And for real, the last thing, the judge, how a democracy is judged is by the protection of the minority, women's suffrage, Americans of color, right to vote, right to live where they want, do what they want. These are all minorities. Around the world, the U.S. government spends a lot of money.
Mr. Kane.
Give me 3 more clauses.
No,
all right?
you've had 3
I know.
last comments.
This is impact.
This is your last
comment, yes. And I appreciate your indulgence, and I do apologize. But the fact is, again, around the world,
Mr.
this
Kane,
company,
please.
I'm at the last thought, John. Please.
You're at 9 minutes.
Okay.
You're at 9 minutes.
It's a record for me. It's fast.
Thank
but
you.
the fact is that
Mr. Kane,
how the minorities are treated is how a democracy is judged. Thank you for your time, and I do apologize to everyone for taking so long.
Les Edwards, Joe Copps, Connie Copps.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've heard a lot about all of the people walking around the golf course. I walk out there 3 to 6 days a week for about 3 to 4 hours. What I see on the golf course are dogs off leash and not necessarily cleaning up dog leavings. I find that disgusting. I also talked to a tremendous number of people down in the open space paths. Surprisingly, I have yet to talk to one who wants more open space. I don't know where the open spacers here are running into all these people. I'm there a lot. I've been out at the Springtown for about 30 years, a lot. I don't see them. All right, now, first of all, if it's going to be made open space, it's going to take a lot of maintenance on the city's part. I think you better budget for things like, even with watering, the foxweed grows very rapidly out there. When it reaches about a foot high, it turns brown. That's a fire hazard along every backyard that backs up to the course. Is that budgeted for? Mowing, watering? You must maintain that much. I say that you should not drop a potential for that area. Now, traffic seems to have come up a lot, but somehow we got about 560 or 70 homes just across the street. They're, for all intents and purposes, 3 stories high or close to 4. The traffic is taking a hit from that. You should not worry about the traffic for Springtown. It's going opposite of the commuters, typically. I worked in that course pro shop for about 8 years. I know how many cars are coming in and going out. Was adequate parking for what we had at that point. Now, those buildings definitely need repair. The ADA, Disabled Association, is starting to look into things more. If you touch making a restroom in those buildings capable the way they want, you're going to have to do the whole building because asphalt in the ceilings, etc. So give that some real thought before you dump Mr. Colt's proposal off the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Joe Copps, Connie Copps, and Natalia Smetsova.
I'd like to go as myself first. Is that all right with you?
Okay.
No problem with that. Okay. I'm here I want to say, support of parallel tracks and whoever has proposals. I'm not exactly thrilled about the school and the parks as an option for that, but maybe they'll present something to us that we can compare. I am in support of a fair process, and I want to make sure that the letter I faxed over at 11 o'clock this morning did go through. And it asked, it says here to fax to Susan Neer, 960-4205. And I would like this made part of the record. My letter states, it says, Dear Mayor, Council, and City Staff, correct item 602, the item from the agenda, and review this report so that it does not imply it is a Springtown HOA proposal. I have attended the meetings that Mark Colt has proposed to our Springtown Homeowners Association. The Springtown Association has not consulted with or provided us, the homeowners of Springtown HOA, proper legal counsel to oversee this matter. Additionally, there are two other groups, the Save the Springtown Golf Course group and the North Livermore Open Space Alliance group, that might have muddled opinion due to what they understand as facts, but may or may not be fact-based opinions. Additionally, gossip is ruling the process, and some listed as HOA members on our member sheet are deceased or not listed. And I'm going to give you a quick example of someone not listed. One entity that owns 2 homes in Springtown HOA is actually just listed as the president of in their properties. It's actually another firm. And some listed, the December 7th minutes have not been approved, and the meeting presentation contains errors. You need to take another look at the motions and fact-check this meeting and fact-check the meetings between the city and Springtown dating back to all business that lead up to this meeting. You should also look to determine if the Delphinian-style meetings held in 2008 were constitutional to decide such narrow choices for Springtown. I would also like you to check how the community at large was notified of all meetings. I received flyers at my house since July for that. I would also like you to check how, I said that already. I would also like to respect requests to take a closer look at the deeds, those that represent the sale of the golf course, to determine if the original acreage of the golf course is actually what was purchased. And I know that they're working on finding that stuff for me. I also want to know why/how some of our city leaders and most HOA leaders have been evasive and indifferent to valid concerns for a thorough and accurate past history, base facts, documented by the Springtown HOA and the city. Be just a couple of minutes here. I would also like to request that there is an internal investigation to determine why the history of Springtown has been suppressed. Without the facts, we cannot move forward in a fair and professional manner. This would be unfair to all Livermore residents who care about Springtown. Thank you for allowing me to weigh in on this matter, but please, we do need more facts. I appreciate your time on this matter. I will appreciate the truth at this matter. And there are 2 DVDs DVDs that I have of the meetings at the Elks Club, and I think some things that were brought up there should have been given more consideration that they did in the process. So I'll be leaving those DVDs. I did fax this letter over today. And then to go as Joe for today, he did not say a whole lot except that he does not think that we should be doing business with the city as a...
Excuse me, Ms. Copps.
Yes?
I'm
Joe
I have
Copps.
your card. Follow this. I have a card for Joe Copps, but you have spoken. You've had your time.
Excuse me, but other people have spoken on other people's behalf, and Joe could not make it tonight. He's cooking dinner for our family. And he did want me to mention that this proposal that Betty Murillo and Mark Colt and that have brought forward, they never brought it forward with legal consult on our end. And he said he just wants you to defer the process, and he supports deferring the process, but our HOA needs to follow needs to have our interest at heart
Ms.
and
Copps,
protect
thank
us
you very
legally.
much.
Mr. Honorable Mayor, you let other people do that. You let
And
Jason
this is
Kane
part of
speak
the
for 10
problem.
minutes.
This is part of the problem. No,
Okay,
please. I
thank
asked-
you.
Thank you very much.
And then here's the DVDs and the letter.
If you'd hand those to the city clerk, please. Natalia Smiltsova, Randy Masker, and David McGuigan.
Honorable City Mayor, City Council, City staff, and dear residents, I represent a new family that just recently moved to Livermore, new blood, new ideas. And I'd like to just point out the priorities that my family was choosing. Something new to the Livermore. And we already added value to Livermore by investing a considerable amount of money to buy the house in Springtown, and we're planning to invest more and by increasing the demographics in Livermore in the future. So hopefully we will add value to this amazing city. But I'd like to mention the priorities, why I chose to be here in this amazing, beautiful Livermore and more wonderful Springtown neighborhood. I wanted to make sure that no development is going on the back of my house, that the neighborhood is secure, that is safe, that no burglaries, that the land is monitored and supervised by somebody, that the value of my property will not decrease in the future and will only develop and increase in the future. We'll have more potential in the future. And obviously that I pay the least dues, HOA dues as possible to our HOA. Frankly, what I see right now regarding the current situation is that the criminal activity increased on the temporarily closed Springtown golf course, and the city is trying to identify some open space opportunities. All I know is that master plan process will cost up to $300,000 to spend to evaluate this option. That converting to open space will cost $300,000, and if the golf course is permanently closed, it will become passive open space during master planning process that can take up to 2 years. So I just not clear about any clarification what the city staff is right now doing on the other front apart from Mark Holt's idea. That's why I really believe that Mark Holt's project represents the best outcome to all the stakeholders in this city. I behoove the city council to allow Mark to continue developing his proposal, to allow sufficient time and a reasonable time for the project team to be able to create the best outcome for all residents and stakeholders of the city. I do not consider an open space to be an acceptable outcome for our community. I ask the city to provide substantially more clarity on how they can expect to mitigate the negative impacts to homeowners that Mark Holt just raised. I'm also asking the city to explain their necessity for aggressive timeline given to Mr. Colt. When the city staff has recommended to leave the golf course temporarily closed during master process, as I said, they identified that master planning process will take up to 2 years. So I'm just unclear in this situation, and I really ask you to, why can't all these, projects just come parallelly and be assessed parallelly by the city staff? I'm not sure what the city staff will be presenting on May. That's my question as well regarding the feasibility of open space. What exactly are they going to present? But I urge you to maybe give more clarification to the city staff also, maybe to show Mark how they assess the development projects if they say that it's not enough. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Randy Masker, David McGuigan, Nancy Thorne. Okay, Randy's gone. Okay, David McGuigan, Nancy Thorne, Bruce Schultz. Mr. McGuigan.
Hi, Dave McGuigan, Ontario Drive. A lot of contention over a golf course. You know, it kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with a fellow who used to service a military site. He was a civilian contractor, and he was running the site for the people there. And, you know, he had this kind of observation. He kind of said, you know, it's the civilians that really do everything. The commander, he comes in and he thinks he knows what he wants, and he can kind of say, you know, this is what I want to get done, and I'm going to get something done and everything. But he goes, you know, we just have to wait him out. A couple of years, he's gone, and we can get the next guy in, and we can get him to do what we want to do. It really is the desire of the staff that really kind of starts showing when you really look at things. We've been trying to kill Springtown for more than 2008. I remember them trying to get rid of it in the 90s. Okay. It's just a long-term process, and they know it. My questions kind of come in a couple of things. The laughable, I'll use that word, critiques of traffic and development. Well, yeah, maybe if you get the measure passed in November, we can guarantee that Springtown's 85 acres will not be developed. But if that doesn't pass, all bets are off. When development does happen, and it will, it's probably going to be a lot more than the traffic usage that the office building, which would have been a reverse commute. You put your 500 houses on the 6 per acre out there. That's 500 in the morning, 500 in the evening. That's another doubling of the traffic out there. You know, it's going to happen unless you get the measure passed. So we're kind of asking ourselves, really, what is it that we want to have happen? We've starved that facility. We haven't put the money into it, so we guaranteed that Springtown was going to fail. Are we going to give it an opportunity to get a viable option? I don't know. Maybe it'll work, maybe not. I'd like to see some more development ideas or some more details. I think it's a little obscene asking a full-on development process to be done in 3 months' time. It's just not possible. Since you have a ballot measure coming on in November to answer the question of whether or not we're going to keep it open, and if it's up to Mr. Holt's purview, let him continue on to develop the ideas. Let him continue going forward. If we get the ballot on there and it passes, well, I'm sorry, you spent a lot of time. It's open space now. But if it doesn't, we have a backup plan. Don't kill it tonight.
Thank you, Mr. McGuigan. Nancy Thorne, Bruce Schultz, Gary Swinsko.
Hi, I'm here to ask you to extend the time for Mark Colt, at least till the end of May, which you'd previously agreed. We have an opportunity. Maybe we'll decide to go with it, and maybe we won't. But Mark has invested a lot of time in trying to develop some solutions that would be good for everybody. Some that would make the open space people happy, some the golf course, some the homeowners. It seems to me incredible in a democratic process that we would just cut him off. Why wouldn't we want some input and some opportunities? See what comes up. Now, it also seems interesting to me, you know, there's been a long history of trying to kill the golf course, not maintain it, and so forth. And yet we have more than one national golf course manager who manages courses all over the country who wants to improve and run this golf course. The argument about Class A space. If you talk to young people who are working in the tech industries now, why they go to different companies, they go because they provide all these extra things. And maybe to us old folks, that isn't important, but that's what gets and keeps their employees. Here you have a unique place. They would have a golf course. They would have a wonderful restaurant. They would have walking spaces. They'd have all sorts of other entertainment facilities, physical activities. We have options of gyms, all sorts of things. As I said, something for everybody. It doesn't cost the city anything, and it does provide some employment in our area. It gives us a little bit of class. Otherwise, what do we end up with? You are going to have expenses and problems. It's not like the open space is a cure-all. And if you decide to go development, you're going to have massive uprising here. I mean, the city, people are pretty fed up with the kind of development that's been going on First Street with the density and not even a little bit of green space in each unit. Where would you put a child in those places? We have we're going to have social problems because of that. What do the kids do? What do old people do? Where do they go just so they don't have cabin fever, so they can go outside on their own property and their own complex? We're going to have everybody sit inside, do videos, and not interact with anybody, have no communities. So basically, I'm asking you to extend Mark's opportunity, give him a chance to do a quality job. You know from dealing with your other projects, it takes a long time to develop a good project. So please help Mark do his job. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Schultz, and finally, Gary Swinsko. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Bruce Schultz, and I'm the president of the Springtown HOA. I'm here to ask that you please allow Mark Colt's proposals to continue. I think everything that can be said has been said about pros and cons for the golf course, so I won't spend a lot of time. But I do think this is an opportunity for Springtown, which has always considered itself and believed to be the council's red-headed stepchild and not have any development on that side of the interstate to progress into the 21st century. We believe that this development would be good for all the residents, not just Springtown HOA members. It brings a new golf course, it brings other businesses, restaurants, and a gym possibly. And I think it will improve the other side of the interstate tremendously and also help for future residents in Springtown. Thank you.
Just a quick question, if I may. Has there been a vote? This came up a question a couple of times tonight. Has there been a vote of the HOA on this?
There's not been a vote yet. Our plans are, as this jail's a little more to do, we've had 5 meetings, we've handed out flyers, we've mailed flyers, we've sent email to all 505 residents. So we've done all the contact we can with the people there in Springtown.
Okay, thank you. And last, Gary Swinsko. Take us home.
I'll try, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members, City staff, thank you for having me. Many Springtown homeowners, not just those adjacent to the golf course, have property values that are be reflected in the Springtown community. And Springtown is our community. I agree with that gentleman with regards to the stepchild that seems to be on the other side of 580. My question is this, I'll try to keep it brief. Is the city bargaining in good faith? And I think that was, the City Council needs to take that under regard. The acceptance of the original 1973 agreement, as Jason Kane pointed out, with the HOA and the Springtown homeowners, and in the current process with Mr. Colt and the residents of Springtown, again, the orphan child. I think we take a lot of time, and there's been many, I mean, basically just honor your agreements and those of your previous council members. The city accepted Mr. Colt's extension as preliminary proposal in December, and it was never understood to be a completed project by the March timeline. I get a lot of the questions that these open space proponents are pushing for. The Mr. Greenman seems to be vigilant on closing when they themselves took many years to fail many times at the Springtown Golf Course. Staff never acknowledged the city's culpability during the last 35 of the 44 years, particularly with the irrigation system before leasing to outside management companies. City subsidizes all other enterprise-only properties, except Springtown. They've done the water subsidy. You say that water is self-sustaining. It is not. We had the drought, and then we raised prices because they weren't making money. Las Positas wasn't making money. What did you do? You gave them more. You gave them more loans. You raised money there. The Bankhead is another one. Springtown Golf Course, no, it's not nearly close to what you've done for the rest of the area of the community of Livermore. The RFP receives no responses because it's unsustainable at its current state. It was unsustainable at its existing state in 2008. Sycamore proved that. City should still honor its 10-year lease and seek an acceptable solution to remain a golf course and not just rush to go to open space by the ballot. Still honor that 10-year commitment you had in 2008. Affordable golf is dying. Municipal affordable golf is the future. You rule out many junior and senior golfers, as you saw in here today and previous council meetings, from a lifelong pastime. Keep the course open. Open space generates no revenue, only expenses, and we have plenty of open space in the immediate area. Regards to these we have these dogs walking on that course and leaving their feces up there. These owners are not being responsible out there. They weren't doing it in dog parks. They're not going to do it there either. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Swinsko. Okay. We've heard a lot of testimony. You guys want to take about a 10-minute break? Okay, 10-minute break. Be back here at 18 after. Thank you. Back in business here. Thank you very much. A quick break here. Okay, let's. Any further questions from the council for staff at this point?
Yes.
Yes, questions?
Questions for
first.
Mr. Colt?
Questions first, then we'll go to comments.
Okay, I have a couple questions, and some of mine are for staff, and some of them are. Yeah. Come on up. In no particular order, and I'm assuming that the answer to this is no. Has the HOA agreed to lease the property to Springtown Partners?
Not yet.
Okay. How much is currently in Springtown Partners' bank account?
Springtown Partners is a special purpose vehicle.
Right.
So right now there's no money
There's no
in that
bank
bank account.
Okay, that's what I
Money
assumed.
would be coming from investors that would fund Springtown Partners. Yes.
Okay. But if something happened with the investor, in your documents it stated that Springtown Partners would then pick up the bill. So at some point...
There would be no risk that an investor would leave because they'd be required to put all their money into escrow before the beginning of this project.
But if they go bankrupt, they go bankrupt. So
Well,
there has to be somebody behind them.
How can you go bankrupt when the capital is there in escrow? I don't understand that.
I do. and I am an MBA, by the way, or very similar to that. And I have golf Springtown for people that say that we don't know our finances and we don't know golf. We do know a little bit. Somebody had stated, because there's a lot of things going around, I just want to clear up rumors with you at the thing. Somebody had stated that you have an investor group that wants to invest $50 million in this project. Is that true?
Up to $50 million. Yes.
Okay. Now you're talking about an underground parking garage. You're talking about a huge building. You're talking about a bus bridge. You're talking about traffic remodeling, and you think you can get all that done for $50 million or less?
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly correct.
All right. Question for staff. I'm good with you for now. Thanks.
Alrighty.
We are looking at proposals for potentially putting some business space at Isabel. Yes? Yeah. How many square feet, and are we looking at Class B? What are we looking at I know that's 20 years down the road, but what are we looking at potentially putting at Isabel for office space?
So we're modeling office space.
Right.
We're not modeling Class A or Class B. We're modeling office
Just office space in general, like a tech thing. So roughly how many square feet are we proposing in the average? A raw number that's not accurate is fine. Are we looking at 5,000 square feet or 3,000? I mean, rough.
It's more than that, and I don't have that. I don't have that number.
Are we approaching 100,000? Are we in the same ballpark for Isabel as we are? And I know I'm hitting you guys totally off wall because this just came up
in my head while we were here.
I can't answer that.
We don't know if we're in the same ballpark as what they're proposing. Okay. That's all I have right now.
Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Just a couple questions for staff. Right now, to maintain our current level of service with a 100,000 square foot office plus another 13,000 square foot golf use, to maintain the current level of service along Bluebell, would that entail expanding Bluebell, additional lanes? Are we talking about traffic signals? Also, at the same time, what would be the impact to Bluebell Drive and Sunflower, that intersection as well? Would that include additional lanes and traffic signals?
Without doing an analysis right now,
Right.
it would at least entail making some adjustments to the intersection.
Okay. And do we know if that would be a traffic signal worthy volume, just kind of off the top of your head?
Signalize probably some turn pockets, widening.
Okay. One of the other the comments, or more, I'll direct this as a question. Do we have any legal way to direct traffic to use Bluebell and avoid the Larkspur intersection? Ooh, this is an attorney question. He's grabbing me. Sorry, I said the word legal. I should have just said any way.
No
but,
problem.
Yeah.
With regard to directing traffic, there are certain conditions of approval you can put upon the business to direct its employees to use a certain route, but you couldn't direct them use similar conditions for their customers.
Okay, because it's kind of traffic planning 101 that traffic is very much like water. It will take the path of least resistance. So good, thank you on that. And then the other question I have, either for the Springtown HOA, I think the chair, I would like, I think a more direct answer as to why the HOA hasn't taken a vote yet. I think you can at least vote on a concept of this magnitude. It's critical that the HOA agree to proceed with developing this property. If the HOA doesn't agree, then all of this is for naught, even if we give another 6 months or a year. And that vote, I assume it would be property owner based. Do we know basically what the percentage is under the bylaws? Is it half? Is it 2/3? Is it 80%? I mean, do we have those? I think are very basic questions that we should know by now without having to go through the bylaws ourselves. Does anybody from the HOA have that information offhand?
That is a sliding scale. I do not have it memorized. It depends on the number of votes that are cast.
Depends on the number of votes that are cast. So it's
Determine a quorum.
okay. So it's 5 votes come in, and it's weighted on the number of votes. Interesting. Okay, and then it's sliding based on how many votes are actually received.
That's correct.
Okay, that's interesting.
That is correct.
Okay,
Being
well,
the former president for the Homeowners Association, a simple majority would make a decision on whether or not this proposal is accepted or rejected.
okay. So I'm getting conflicting, but that's something I think that should have been fleshed out a long time ago, and it should be in your CC&Rs, and I think we should have that. Other than that, I don't have any additional questions or clarifications. I'll save the rest for comments.
I have a question.
Certainly.
Could the president of the HOA come up, please? We'd rather get the comments on the record of the meetings, tape recorded, to follow up on the council members' questions. Not fully on our side, of course, having copy of the bylaws and understanding. When we left the meeting in December, the HOA said, in effect, we want time to work, et cetera, with this proposal. Have the members of the HOA been asked to appoint a negotiating committee? Has there been any vote on how to construct basically an HOA entering into a $50 million land development agreement?
The HOA doesn't plan to enter in other than lease the land to the developer.
Have the current members of the HOA been involved in any balloting actions to empower the board or a negotiating committee to proceed with this project?
We've done no official hardline balloting for this. We have sent out inquiries. We've held meetings. We've had no opposition to the development. We've had no opposition to Mark Colts representing the HOA.
How many voting members are on the HOA board today?
On the board itself?
Voting members on the board today.
Currently, there's 5 spaces with 4 members.
Thank you. A question for staff. conceptually, 100,000 square foot office building in terms of, or 100,000 square foot just building in terms of mass? Does something come to mind as a rough comparable? Maybe the Kaiser Medical Building or
Kaiser
retail
Medical
store?
Building's about 2/3 of that scale, so add a third story on that. That's about the right size of a building.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear.
My question was 100,000 square foot of office space. That kind of space under one roof. What's the physical mass that the community and the planning process would have to accept, largely fronting on those roads, because we're not going to put it back on the first or second fairway? Just trying to get an idea of gross concept of size and mass. Other question for the city manager.
And what did he say was the comparison?
The Kaiser Medical Complex on lot.
With an additional floor.
And then what's the size of the lot where the Kaiser complex is?
They don't have that off the top of their heads where the parking spaces. I mean,
Probably more than
huge.
Can I comment on that? I'm sorry, because I measured it out earlier, just based off of my own experience using GIS tools. So please don't take this for gospel. But the Kaiser building itself is around 33,000 square feet of the footprint. So that's 2 stories, 66. So you would need to add another level. The lot is about 5.5 acres. And the Springtown lot is about 5 acres, so it's about half acre, and we are not accounting for the 13,000 square foot footprint of the golf facility. And that I also have to, it's going to bring up in my comments, but the green space that the HOA owns as well, the putting greens, is included in that. So you would basically be putting the building plus the parking in that available space, which is smaller than Kaiser, but it'll be a bigger building by over a third.
And add another story.
Right, add another story plus another 13,000 square foot facility next to that 100,000 square foot building.
And to the city manager who's got a long tenure here in development, for the kind of probable general plan amendment, zoning change, intensification of use the proposal would generate, I can't think in my, give or take, 22 years that big of a change of zoning and general plan designation, or am I wrong? Or would this be right up there at some of the biggest ever considered in terms of us? We've done small infill projects, mainly from commercial that no longer pencils to retail. I can't think of going to the low-rise single-story development that's there to 3+ stories with parking, or has it just happened over the decades and it happens so infrequently we don't see them one by one?
The site's unique in that it's surrounded, or it's at least very much an integral part of a residential neighborhood. So I think that's the unique piece of it. So have we done large-scale development projects throughout the community of that scale? Absolutely.
No,
but in a business park, our entire downtown, of course,
No, I
has
meant a
changed.
general plan amendment of that intensification of commercial.
Inside a residential neighborhood? No.
Inside residential.
I don't remember one. I mean, probably the closest thing you had was, actually the business park, the Sunset Business Park. You're actually going the other direction on that. But that level of intensity of change, that went from an office park of 70,000 square feet to a number of residential units. But that's about the closest I could come to. But that, of course, were 1- and 2-story residential buildings versus a 3-story office building.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, let's go to comments. We went that way first. So, Vice Mayor, we go first.
Well, I'll go first. Several observations. As the maker of the motion, probably both sides tonight, or one side, would accuse me of being too nice in December. When the HOA said, "We've got this 11-minute idea, give us time to flesh it out," my recollection of the conversation as the maker of the motion was to give them time to slightly enhance their facilities and footprint and try to find an adjoining golf course operator. The idea of the March check-in was to get key deal points figured out and to come before the council for a check-in and future guidance so that by the end of May, a construct could be fully vetted, And we, representing the entire community, could figuratively say proceed or stop. What's happened since that time, quoting Mr. Colt's last page, we conducted extensive outreach to golf course operators, contacting over 100 operators and to investors. Unfortunately, at that stage, we have determined that this option was not feasible due to the fact it would not remedy the negative condition of the golf course proper, and that regardless of the conversion of the SHOA meeting hall into a restaurant, golf course operators would still not be willing to take on the risk of operating the facilities under a turnkey lease, and that would require either the SHOA or investors to take on the risk to hire golf course operators under a traditional management contract. That's what the Golf Association report said. That's what staff has said. That has been the litany. I recently met with, oh, by the way, I was going to report it in our matters initiated, the operators out at Las Positas. Just a general, hi, how you doing? Give me an idea how business is going. And as many in the community know, yes, we have had to inject capital repair subsidies into Las Positas. So my perception as a council member is golf a recreational amenity that deserves a place in Livermore? Yes. We're subsidizing a full range of that amenity at Las Positas. The question's always been, for the lack of recycled water and the location and being 9 holes, what's economically beneficial and resident beneficial? I feel for the homeowners on the edge of the course, but when I made the motion in December, I envisioned a modest HOA rebuild, perhaps a 2-story building with some neighborhood commercial space that would maybe serve medical, dental professionals and a CPA, an attorney. You could generate some modest revenue. If the proposal had been for 100,000 square feet of office space, 300 to 400 parking spaces, plus the legal fiscal entanglements with the HOA and the developers, certainly that's an 18 to 24-month process. Certainly it's a huge community lift. This council member, just speaking as an individual tonight, would not support a general plan amendment for an intensification of that use to that neighborhood, to that intersection, that close to that freeway interchange. It's just too much. So where does that leave us today? Integrity was bandied around tonight. We did say till May to get a final proposal. The check-in should have happened last month. We could have had this conversation last month. There are no legal agreements with the HOA or anybody. There is no firm investor commitment. There is a lot of discussion and negotiation going on, just like there would be with any capital developer. Most of the other capital developers of a project this size we work with have vast experience in doing it. Our commercial broker partners that we've used before have said 100,000 square feet of Class A is speculative at best. This council member is saying it gives me great indigestion to do a general plan amendment to site it at that location. The deck is stacked against you. Obviously, the will of the council tonight and the vote will dominate. I personally see no problem letting this slide until the second week of May, which was our original commitment, but only if we see legal agreements, we see a vote of the Homeowners Association, we see investors signed up and dialed and styled and ready to commit to an 18-month planning process that will probably tear Springtown apart. And even if you get a 3+ vote of this council to do that intensification of use to preserve a 40-year-old 9-hole golf course with a subsidy, I bet it's referended. I think the community itself would reject that intensification of use up there. So you've got we said in December, a huge hill. We gave you 4 months to get past bright idea. We're still at a PowerPoint, bright idea, a lot of nice words, nothing of substance. So you're losing my patience. But for 2 more council meetings to see Cinderella show up, I suppose, with the slipper, it's only a few more weeks. The question was raised as maker of the motion. I'm sorry for going on so long. Why the time rush? We're going to have a collaborative conversation with this community, first over the Open Space Initiative. They have to know what they're voting for and not an 18-month development timeline. And then we're going to go into a master planning process with LARPD, and there needs to be certain fixed pivot points around the reuse and open space. We need to move on. Either the homeowners had a modest proposal, as I understood it to be in December, or they're really sole source exclusive negotiating with a master developer who's got a grand vision that really changes the character of that intersection and the entrance to that part of North Livermore. And that's not what I believed we were giving them time to study back in December. And their own golf studies have repeated where every golf study's ever said that the time has passed Springtown by.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner. Oh, well, okay, Councilor Spadowski then.
Sure. I'll be brief. I think a lot was said back in December. I don't want to rehash what we went over in December in terms of the amount of work that we put into the golf course, the amount of money we put into the golf course over many, many years in this town, and it just hasn't worked out. So I'll leave that. You can read the staff report. We have the minutes. I think we've been through that. One other comment that I want to make is I do not appreciate attacks of staff and their integrity. They are evaluating the concept based on industry standards and their professional experience with projects that have worked, and in particular with projects that have not worked in town. So for people to slam staff, I don't think it's productive, and I don't think it helps in this situation at all. The next item I want to bring up is what we touched on earlier, and that's the sheer square footage of what's being proposed on the lot that is controlled by the HOA. It is just, I do not see a practical way of placing a 100 square foot building with a 13,000 square foot separate facility on that site without having either A, parking backed up against residential lots, or worst case scenario, the building itself being backed up. A 4-story building, 3 or 4-story building, you will have office space now looking into people's backyards. How is that going to fly? If you get 80% of the HOA to agree to that, and then none of the neighbors that are going to be impacted, that still is just something that you're not thinking of those impacts. Speaking of leaving a few things out, the cost of the bus bridge, the road improvements, the cost of the insufficient parking still haven't been accounted for, in particular with the space for parking. As I understand it, the water table in the area would be highly problematic in doing any type of subterranean parking. So in short, and to keep this, and hopefully I should have started the 3-minute timer, the story keeps changing. And it's not changing for the better. I do believe if we give this 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, it's just going to continue to change, and we are not going to find a solution that would include a 100,000 square foot office building. I think the plan on having it 100% occupied is a poor gamble at best, and I don't think you would find anybody with industry experience that would say, yes, you will have a 100% occupied building guaranteed, in particular with a government agency. I would like to know what government agency would essentially overpay for a brand new building, because I'd be the first in line to complain about that government agency spending that money on a Class A office space. So I just don't think it's a realistic option. I thought that I was pretty clear on some of the issues that we covered back in December about the effort that we put into this golf course. We have tried. It's just been a historical sink of public resources, and at some point we need to move forward and move on, and I think that point is now.
Now I'm ready. Just took me a minute to gather my brain. Thank you. Again, I was pretty clear on how I stand in December, and have really spent a lot of time thinking about this project. And I love the vision. I love the thought. I love the idea. Wouldn't it be cool if some company like Google came in and wanted to do a whole campus and have all these amenities and all that kind of stuff? That would be super cool, but it wouldn't even fit there. They need more space. So somebody that needs an office space as small as you're proposing, I don't see. Because if it's a successful company, they're going to grow out of it in a couple of years, and then they're going to want to get out of their lease. There's so many obstacles to face with this. And the biggest one, you guys could have very easily have already taken care of, and that's the vote of the homeowners of whether or not they're even in support of this. I'm very disappointed that a vote has not happened to say whether or not the HOA members, if you even have a majority of people willing to lease this land to a developer, and if you have a majority of people in the area that are willing to consider a building, you've been spinning around with all kinds of information, and the basic foundational question still has not been asked. And that's what I would have done first, is say, hey, HOA members, yes or no, what do you guys think? Because if you don't have a majority, you could have stopped this in January. And so I'm surprised by that. And I did not, I've have heard the history of this golf course over the dinner table one too many times from one person that did not vote against it about 30 years ago, and for the same exact reasons that we face now. And it was not financially viable then. There are less golfers now than they were then, and it is still not financially viable in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people that have much more financial acumen than I do. And so I will not support going on with this, and I absolutely support staff recommendation. I do realize with integrity that we said May, and if there's a huge difference that 2 weeks will make, I don't see it. Can you feasibly have a vote of all your HOA members and have all of these things done that you couldn't get done in 4 months within 2 weeks? I don't really see how that could happen. So I'm really not in support of extending beyond today.
All right. Thank you. Okay. I agree. I think that the very most basic thing would be a vote of the HOA, and we haven't seen that. Heard a lot of different comments tonight. We keep hearing over and over again about the issues of integrity and the May promise, and we heard Mr. Colt saying that they would need probably another 18 months to 2 years ultimately to flesh this out. We once again heard the comment about, why did we give it to Sycamore Landscaping? Because Sycamore Landscaping was the only one that presented a proposal. Yes, maybe they didn't have any experience. Maybe that's why they submitted a proposal. But, they were the only ones, and we listened to the community. I know that a lot of folks say that the council doesn't listen to the community. We did. The community said, we want you to bring in an independent contractor, and we did. And the only one that stepped forward was Sycamore Landscaping, and like the Ford developer or contractors before that, they couldn't turn a profit in 50 years. We've heard folks say that it just doesn't turn a profit. I've heard a lot of people talk about the city should continue to subsidize it. Yet everybody, just raise your hands. Who likes big government? Who likes big, lumbering government, right? Okay, just for the home audience, no one raised their hand, right? Nobody raised their hand because people love what big government provides. But small, efficient government cannot afford to subsidize a losing enterprise to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. We can't do that, and that's why we started this process 7, 8 years ago, I guess, when we first started talking about this. It hasn't worked. We've tried it a number of different ways, and no, we're not trying to kill Springtown. We've been trying to make this work for almost 50 years, and it just doesn't have the wherewithal. Mr. City Manager, what's the approximate value of this land?
It depends, obviously, on first of all, it's the land under. So if we're talking about the 5 acres that the HOA, as industrial or office space, somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $12 a square foot would be essentially equivalent to what you'd have in your industrial parks right across the freeway in that location for office space. So in big round numbers, $500,000 an acre, $2.5 million at the low end if there were some tremendous synergy between the surrounding uses, the neighborhood, the golf course, the duck pond, all of those things working together.
That's where we make the money on the duck pond.
That number could be a little higher than that. Okay. I mean, the $2.5 million would be as if you were, a mile to the south of the industrial park.
Ballpark.
Okay. $2.5 to $4 million would be a very generous range.
And we're expecting, because we've heard comments about this is going to be everything for everybody at no cost to anyone. I love that. I wish I could do that all day long. But everything for everybody and no cost to anyone. That means that for about a $2.5 million property, we're expecting to be spinning off $500,000 to support the golf course and all the other funds and enterprises that are going on out there. And that's just, for me, an incredible return on investment. And I just don't see it. No letters of intent or of interest, but for no specific amount. One of the things that the Vice Mayor pointed out is that what we were looking for when we first brought this up in December, let's look for a business plan. Let's look for a failure analysis. Who's on the hook if this thing doesn't work? There's three fingers pointing back at me. So it's the city. So we haven't seen a failure analysis. We haven't seen a business plan. One of the speakers tonight said that they've seen building plans, site plans, parking plans. I haven't seen those, and I would have expected that we would have seen those if this really was a viable proposal, that we would have had some of those things brought to us. By the way, we do not subsidize the bankhead. That's a thing that keeps coming up over and over again. The city does not subsidize the bankhead. So thank you very much on that. And I guess I would toss this one to Mr. Kiefer. Has the history of Springtown and the property dealings, has that been suppressed?
No.
No, okay. But I mean, all that's public documentation, and it's readily available to anybody that's looking for it. Okay. So this, anything that's everything to anybody, no cost to anyone, scares me. Because I haven't seen a business plan. I haven't seen the failure analysis. And there's a lot of stuff that we need to see before we can really move ahead with anything. There are those that tonight said that, well, you promised in May. I get that. We wanted to check in March. That didn't happen. But May is next month. So if we can get the information in May, I mean, and I'm talking even the end of May, I'll be happy. But if I can get information by the end of May for perhaps a June meeting, would that be something that staff would be able to turn over in that period of time, depending on the complexity of the proposal?
If we received we understand what the request of the council is, and the idea here, pro forma. So essentially, profit, loss, how the money flows between the various pieces of the puzzle. Essentially a failure analysis, a more complete, essentially, business plan, at least schematically, at least an outline. If those things, and we'd love to have other information, and I guess at least some evidence of at least conceptual authority or approval from the HOA for the proposal to even be presented to you from the actual association itself, to at least say, yeah, they'd like to explore a development of that scale. Obviously, lots of details to be worked out if everybody loves stuff or doesn't. But those sorts of things we could analyze in a period of time and bring something back to you in June. Yes, that would be possible.
Okay, so we would be able to accept information in May, if we can get all this additional information that's fleshed out by May, possibly for a June meeting, which you're talking about, the pro forma, the failure analysis, the business plan, those sorts of things. Would it be possible to, at the same time, so we don't lose time, because I know we're burning money right now, to start the process to explore what that conversion for open space would look like?
What we could also do in parallel with your direction is to bring back a proposal for you as far as what a planning process with the community might look like for the future of the property. So that would involve bringing LRPD, who wishes to actually be very much involved in that process, actually to facilitate and run that process, which I'm pretty excited about, because they're the recreation district, and that's
they do parks, don't they?
They do parks. They do open space.
We don't do
it's
parks.
what they do. So having them very much involved in that process seems, from a governmental standpoint at least, to make a lot of sense. And so we could bring back a proposal for what a community process would look like, what the cost of that would be, and a framework for essentially a request for proposal. That's, we would go out and actually ask someone to help us with that process. So we could have that basic information of what that might look like in a time frame back for you at the same time.
Okay, very good. And just to expand a little bit on what Councilmember Spadowski said, staff works at our direction. So if you got a problem with what staff's doing, it's our fault. Staff does an amazing job. As you saw tonight, they're trying to figure out where the council is on this, and I think that staff does a remarkable job. But they follow the council's direction. So if there's any issues, it's on us. So with that, any further questions or comments? I'd be willing to entertain a motion.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to accept staff's recommendation to develop a master planning process, develop ballot language to preserve the golf course and as open space, and maintain the temporary golf course closure.
I will second that motion.
Okay, I will make an amending motion to add that we extend the process to the originally agreed upon date to provide information as outlined by the city manager that would be due no later than the end of May to be processed for a June meeting.
So we have to vote on the...
Well, I need a second first.
Okay.
Is there a second on that?
Not yet.
Okay.
Two things. I meant what I said, second meeting of May. I mean, we said May. May is a business meeting. Applicant should have known from December onward the clock would conclude the second council meeting of May. Two, to get a second from me, second meeting in May or first meeting in June. Again, we're only dancing a small swing. I would want all four of us to weigh in, including the city attorney and city manager, on what the specific written binding deliverables would need to be. And I'm afraid it's too much in too little time. It just is. They haven't talked to city staff in person. They don't understand the development standards. And I've already said tonight I can't support the intensification of development that they're talking. So if they need that much development to pencil, isn't it de facto over? Now, if they can come in with a vote of the homeowners association and a legal counsel opinion that says why that vote of 4 or 10 can't be overturned 2 weeks later by 100 showing up and saying, what'd you do to us? I don't know that their whole business legal operation is ready to sign a multi-decade lease. We don't know, besides the business plan, what the investor commitments, need to look like to go forward into the city entitlement process. We would ordinarily require a developer, I'm stepping on Mr. Kiefer's toes here, to put a deposit of serious money on the line to entertain a development general plan amendment planning cycle. Where's the money for that coming from for the front end? So I think if we're going to at the March, now April check-in say, here's what's not done. It needs to be a pretty specific list. So I'd ask you as the maker of the motion to at least consider what the minimum targets are that they'd have to hit. I suppose the other thing is we can never stop a private landholder from coming forward with a development proposal at any time. I mean, every landowner has rights to develop their property, and if you want to take what you've heard, tonight and come up with a rescale development application that maybe includes some companion uses on the city property, there's no way to say we'd turn you away at the door and never listen to you. But I think this application on this scale is pretty much. It's like we have the technology to go to the moon and you want to go to Mars tomorrow. I think it's too much unless you're prepared to really firm up what end of May looks like. And to date, we've had 4 months and another PowerPoint.
No, I agree. I think the points that you made, also the additions that the city manager made as far as requirements that the staff would need, and what I would need for my comfort level, and perhaps how big that building gets fleshed out in the business plan. So I agree. The timeline and also the parameters that both you and the city manager suggest to be included in the information delivered. Yes.
The thinking isn't a technical question of staff. I don't want to lead the applicants and the current homeowners leadership on that with this council member, your plan B begins to pass my community acceptance test. So the deal points are half the equation, and the other one is what's a more responsible, under the existing general plan designations for the site, a more responsible development proposal that isn't going to require a huge general plan amendment and subject Springtown to neighbor versus neighbor war over what's going to happen on that parcel that was never envisioned to happen. I just can't see it.
Well, that's why that vote is critical. The vote of the HOA is especially primary, and that needs to come back as well. I think that actually has to be first before anything else.
What about the rest of us?
Pardon me?
We're not all homeowners.
Oh, well, that's the other issue. Okay. All right. Thank you. Just another complicating wrinkle. Okay. So
this is all of you. This is positive. This is government at work. We have to listen to each other. We have to talk stuff through. This is what you want while a motion's being tendered.
The whole thing about sausage and laws. Well, you're looking at it right now. Thank you, Will Rogers. So I made the amending motion with the provisions that you have included, and also the city manager. Is there a second?
Are you entertaining 100,000 square foot?
I think that comes back as part of the business plan, and if that is not, if that doesn't meet the, well, then it comes back to the council. If it doesn't fly, then it's done. But we haven't seen the information that we had asked for. We originally proposed giving them a March check-in with a May deadline, and I'm proposing that we continue the May deadline, and then based on the information that we get in May, then that's when we make the final determination.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just can't.
Okay.
I can't support that motion for that size of development up there now that it's been vetted before us, officially to this extent at this point.
Okay. So the 100,000 square feet is the deal killer. Okay. So the motion dies for lack of a second.
Well, and just a bit more clarification, a bit more discussion on the alternate. I get where you're coming from. I totally understand. And personally, I would have loved to have been proven wrong from my decision back in December, which was basically, deciding it that evening and not going forward with this proposal. I don't get things 100% right 100% of the time. I, talk to some people, I don't even get it right 50% of the time. I've spoken with everybody that's willing to call me, and I completely understand where you're coming from, and I was very hopeful that with the deadline of a check-in, just to provide some basic information, that we'd have something to actually work with, and we did not get that. And tonight we had a PowerPoint presentation submitted, didn't even go through the PowerPoint presentation, and instead we had 6 pages of additional questions and additional, in my mind, problems and doubts over the project. So instead of moving forward with some type of progress, we were, it's like the cartoon where you're running with your feet and going nowhere. So that's why I really can't support another 2 weeks, because I honestly believe we will be right back in this position where we started from. So I see where you're going, and I completely understand, but it's just something I couldn't support.
Okay. Well, in that case, the amending motion fails for lack of a second. We have the primary motion. Would you please restate the motion?
Sure. I move to approve staff's recommendation to develop a master reuse planning process, to develop ballot language to preserve the golf course as property as open space, and to maintain the temporary golf course closure. And actually, I'd like to add one more item to that, possibly looking into short-term fixes for some of the issues that we've heard tonight since the golf course closure. If we could do something prior to the development of the master plan, and any issues that may arise, I don't know if we can include that in the resolution or not.
Could I ask you to clarify that, or just a suggestion?
Sure, just a suggestion to hear.
Well, no,
Sure.
no. Just could staff come back as part of the budget process the next 2 months? May, June.
Sure.
With what a long-term mothballing during the master plan program looks like and costs like, give them a bit more time to say they had the 90 or 120 day, keep it in suspended animation plan, and what's a give or take a 2 fiscal year suspended animation plan cost us, and what are some of all of the challenges that would go into that?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking more the short term, what we can do right now to address some of the counterclockwise golfing and.
I think they.
Right.
But no, by the time we get to the
months.
operating budget discussion in a couple of meetings,
I just want to make sure that
I think they heard you.
Right.
They heard you that they can triage that.
Sure.
Hey, right away we can do X in 90 days. We can do Z in 180
Sure.
days. Second year we can do something else.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, we can bring additional information back to you at a couple of stages. The budget is certainly one stage. Our next check-in is another stage on that. Some of the problems have to do with some of them are actual use-related issues, and some of them are different user group interface issues, and some of them are perception issues. And so, all of those ultimately need to be dealt with in the long term as we move forward there. The property is being, more intensively used than it has been before. And so that's going to be a bit of, ultimately as we move forward with our process, defining what the interim quote-unquote rules are for the site, and then ultimately what the ultimate rules are for the site.
Okay, so you do have sufficient direction from the motion? Just want to make sure before we take a vote on this thing.
So yes, indeed. And at this particular point, would like a little bit of flexibility on that as far as the timing on that, whether that's a May or an early June item, if that would still be okay with the council for these next steps.
What are you talking about?
These next steps where we come back with essentially the master plan reuse planning process, more detail on that, and essentially more finalized language on your initiative. Essentially, we're within a few days in that period of time. You've got the budget and several other things. There's a thing going on downtown that you've got some scheduled meetings to deal with as well. So somewhere in that few-week process, we will absolutely be able to bring something back to you.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Spadowski, second by Councilmember Turner. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 It passed unanimously. So thank you very much. Thank you for all of your time tonight. Appreciate all of your efforts and comments. We took them all to heart. Thank you. All right. Okay, council committee reports and matters initiated. Councilor Spadowski.
Sure. I only have one significant item to report. On April 6th, I attended the Alameda County Community Choice Energy meeting, our annual monthly meeting. We will have a presentation upcoming to the City Council outlining the entire proposed program. I think it's an exciting opportunity, and I look forward to hearing that presentation. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Turner.
I do not have any matters to be initiated. The only thing I have to report is we had, I guess, with the majority of the folks up here, the honor of seeing our police officers, new police officers being sworn in today. And it was great to see such vibrance and new people and excitement, people that have been within the department be promoted. And it was a great event. And other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Vice Mayor Gary.
Just the one meeting that wasn't a committee hearing, but just wanted to disclose I did, at their invitation, meet with the operators at Las Positas, both the restaurant and the golf course, and just had a great chat about their businesses and what's going on. And no specific commitments were asked or entertained, but we just had a truing up conversation about what time over distance looks like in that aspect of our local golf community. Second suggestion, not so much a matters initiated for staff on the open space golf reuse thing. I don't know how many years ago it occurred, but recently City of Santa Clara was a client, and they've converted at some point in their history a golf course to passive open space, walking, jogging, recreation. There may be no staff there with history, or you might just find one. Could you also just ask through your professional associations through the League of Cities and golf, hey, has anybody in their work experience started down this path of mothballing conversion during a planning process, and what tips might you learn from somebody who said, oh, here's how we handled irrigation, here's how we handled counterclockwise joggers, whatever. just a thought, you know, why reinvent the wheel if somebody out there has already walked it before you?
Yeah, I read an article in the paper about the city of Martinez, I believe, with the golf course development proposal. They went housing route. I'm not proposing that, but they did that would be very interesting to see that local, if you can look into that one as well, and some of the issues surrounding that.
Okay, March 30th, I attended the Tri-Valley Community Television Board of Directors. We talked about some personnel issues and also went over the budget. On the 6th of April, I attended the Livermore Cultural Arts Council, where we had a report on the downtown plan and recapped a lot of the things that the arts organizations are doing in the Tri-Valley. On Saturday, I spoke to the Rotary International students, which is really kind of cool, and Chief Harris was there. Had folks from Paris, from Brazil, from Japan, China, all over the world, and it was they come to Livermore to find out the great things that we're doing here. Today, I went to the Alameda County Transportation Commission, both the 580 express lane update. In February, 126,000 cars used the express lanes, which is all the more remarkable when you figure that there were only 7 days that we were clocking in February. It was a short month, and we started late. So 126,000 cars in 6 days. So that's impressive. That's a lot of use. So there's a lot of people that are using the HOV and HOT lanes. Also, we had the Planning and Policy and Ledge meeting, and they're talking about AB 1746, which is proposed right now, which is going to allow buses to drive on highway shoulders. So that's going to be a whole bunch of different stuff coming down on that one. So wait for that. And then there's another proposal, it's 998, which allows legal enforcement to make sure that people don't park on the shoulders if buses are going to be driving through there. So that's a good partnership to have there. As was mentioned earlier, we swore in members of the Livermore Police Department and dispatch and community service. So that was 16 folks. So that's a bunch of folks. We're committed to public safety in this community. And just one more fun little thing on Thursday, on the 14th, we're going to be dedicating the bandstand down at the Carnegie Park. So that's the Rotary put that together, and that's going to be just a lot of fun. So if you're around at, I guess that's 5 o'clock, I guess.
5:30, the festivities begin. 6 o'clock, people will talk a little while, and I believe there's some refreshments there. Yeah. And that is an extraordinary scale gift to the city from the 2 Rotary clubs through the Rotary Foundation. So we are extraordinarily happy to receive that on behalf of the community and have that in perpetuity. But if you have not been down there, the structure is stunning. Both it's extraordinarily sturdily built. There's some real craftsman style, essentially looking up into the roof of the gazebo. Quite impressive. So a truly wonderful gift.
And if there's an earthquake, that's the place to be, because that's solid.
I'd like to be 1 of 2 places in any of our essential facilities.
Not the triple wide trailer.
Not here, or in that building, in that gazebo. Either of those 2 places, and you'll be in extraordinary good shape.
The gazebo's beautiful, and I got my cupola, the little house thing on top. I made that request, and they heard it, and the architecture on that is just beautiful. It's just a great gift to the community. So if you're around on the 14th, be there for that. With that, there being no further business before the council, meeting adjourned. Thank you.